Welcome to Dynasty Junkies episode 78. I am your man, Scott_Sidlow on Twitter. Tonight here with Andrew Hall FF. Andrew, how you doing?
Oh, always a pleasure to talk to you. And I'll be honest, I'm glad there's not a game tonight. I feel like the drag of this season is just getting exhausting. So I'm actually really glad there's not a game to think about.
Nothing makes me happier right now because this was like, hey, we used to do this podcast on Wednesdays. And it's like, oh, hey, we're going to do it on Thursdays now. You know, there's football on Thursdays. Anyway.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. Tonight, actually, check this out. At Dynasty Junkies on Twitter. You can follow us there. You can see us on YouTube. You can join in, jump in the comments. Come chat about whatever you want. Come talk to our awesome guests we have tonight. We are just lining them up from Dynasty Rewind. And tonight we have the man himself, Chev Noone, one of my favorite names, at ChevBoyRD on Twitter. That is awesome. Chev, what's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Nothing much, man. I'm excited to be on. This name was actually created for PS4 back when I was in college. My buddy's like, all right, we got to come up with a new name. What about Chef Boyardee? I'm like, bro, genius. Let's get after it. So I've been sticking with that name ever since college, and it's just a lot of fun to hear people try to even say my first and last name in general. So it's been a good start to the Chef Boyardee Nation, that's for sure. I'm glad there's not football though, just like you guys, man. It's been awesome to have Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, but goodness gracious, I'm ready for a break after all these bowl games and whatnot, watching all these players. So it's been fun, but it's nice to get a tiny little break before the Saturday slate.
So you know what it reminds me of? I was going to say this, like there were football on 8 days out of 10 days, right? Like we had like what I would call like a gluttonous piece of football. It's like eating too much pie, and you're like, I love pie, but I'm done. I can't eat any more pie. I got to sit down for a minute and let my brain reset. And that's what it was like. We had so much football, so much COVID news, so much ins and outs, and all. Like literally last week with Christmas and like being out of town, we were all at like, different families, and we're all focusing on it. It was literally like overstimulation to the point where now it's like, oh, okay. And I made finals, which is great, but I'm tired. I need a break. So I'm glad we get like 6 days of no football to like discuss and think and plan and strategize for our fantasy championships, which is what we're talking about tonight. So I'm excited. I'm ready. Let's do this, Scott.
And I'll tell you what, this is all the more reason your championship should be this week, because we don't have those Thursday and Saturday games that screwed me up so much last week. I mean, how many of you had decisions to make where you're like, oh man, I don't know if he's going to play, so I guess I better play this guy on Saturday, and then you end up losing by like 2 points, when you had somebody else you could have played. So it is nice. They're all on Sunday. I know the NFL did that for us fantasy guys. I know that's exactly why they did it,
I wish.
Because it's all about the money.
They don't want to get in the way of bowl game season, which again, what Chev was saying, like I do kind of like having bowl games to watch and not have fantasy players in them, but look at it from a fantasy lens and say, okay, well, some of these guys might be coming up in my rookie drafts. So, I mean, not everybody, but some of these players, I'm like, all right, I'll tune into this because of X player. And like, I kind of want to see who they're doing. And like, so it's kind of nice in that regard, like not have a stake in it now, but to like put some research in for the future. So I like that.
Or maybe they're on our C2C squads.
Well, I was going to ask, like, are you on a campus to Canton, Scott? I feel like you are.
I am in the Dynasty Rewind campus to Canton.
Of course you are.
I'll tell you what,
I could segue it back together.
I could not be a part of that. I've been working Saturdays for the last 3 years, and I have barely got to watch much live football on Saturdays. So, Scott, I hope you're kicking their butts, though. I mean, they're always talking trash to each other, but I hope you are winning that for sure.
So this is what's crazy is that my Saturdays, like this was pre-wife, kids, family, whatever, but my Saturdays from when I was a teenager through, I don't know, probably like 3-4 years ago. I mean, 8 a.m. game day, and I watched all the way through like the West Coast games, like midnight, whenever they had. I mean, I watched. I had multiple TVs set up. Like even back in the day, I had like tube TVs like stacked on top of each other, watching multiple games. I mean, it was like that was my Saturday. I knew so many players. I knew everything that was going on. Nowadays, oh man, we got through the first couple rounds of that draft, and I was like, who? I'd never heard of these guys. Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea. And I did really well in the league points wise, but apparently it doesn't go by points. It goes by record, and my record wasn't so good. So I didn't make the playoffs, even though I was like 4th or 5th in points. So just one of those years. What are you going to do? But, hey, I'm learning a lot. Maddie Big Chest, is teaching all of us, teaching us and killing us at the same time.
Dude, that guy has so much knowledge. I mean, I don't know where he gets all this free time and all this time to do graphics and videos and whatnot, but dude is super knowledgeable.
He did these right here.
He's a stud. He's giving away for $30 on Twitter, folks. You better go hit him up before it's too late. That's for sure.
Definitely.
Very talented.
Definitely. Well, with that, what do you guys have this week for injuries? I do want to bring up the new quarantine protocol. The CDC changed the guidelines, and so now NFL's changing the guidelines, and so I guess it's giving more opportunity for players to come back sooner is kind of the easiest way to state that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against it. I mean, again, I'm against it maybe from a scientific and medical standpoint, but who cares about that, right? Like, what does my opinion matter in the huge, crazy chaos of the world? But I'm looking at it like, I really wish this had been last week. Like, I'd be in a lot more finals if Kelsey and others had, made it doesn't matter. It's okay. I'm not bitter, but I'm looking at it like, hey, this is the way the NFL has been all year. It's been very reactionary. It's been very trying to stay on top of the trend. It's been very, doing their best. I honestly believe they're trying to do their best to stay on top of what's true and what's accurate and all this. There's a lot of talk on Twitter about, like, is this the best thing? Is that, you know what? Who knows? Honestly, who knows? There's no way to know.
Nobody
These are athletes
knows.
in their prime of their career, in the prime of their health and all this. And there's still, some of them are getting COVID and having issues with Raquel Armstead, for instance, and other players that are like, having a hard time getting back to the NFL after a COVID exposure. And it's like, it's impossible to give one standard answer to what the answer is, right? It's like, I don't know, here's what we're going to try this now. And I think what the CDC is doing is obviously reactionary to a lot of things and potentially the economy in a broader sense. And we don't need to go down any of those rabbit holes. But I do think that some of this is just the NFL kind of going, all right, let's try it this way. All right, let's try it this way. And I don't hate it. It's a bummer it wasn't a week ago for me personally, but hey, I'll take it. And that's the game we're playing this week. That's all we can do.
Yeah, man, I think it's just crazy. I feel like the first 13 weeks of the NFL season, there was not a single soul that was going to come back after they got COVID. But now we're just like, hey, bring it on. Bring it on. If you got the vaccine, give me 3 days of your time and get back out here. We need your money. Come on.
Yep.
That's right.
I mean, ultimately what it comes down to it too is the NFL is a money sport. It's all about money. It's all about, capitalism and almost in a really finite sense. And again, we don't need to go down the rabbit hole of all this, but in the end of the day, the NFL wants to put the best product on the field. I don't think that anyone is going to debate that. What they might debate is it the safest idea or is it the best option for the players? That's debatable. But obviously the NFL doesn't want to put out a subpar product. They don't want to put something out there that is weak and not great looking. Mm-hmm. Kind of like reminds me of like remember the Denver game last year where their entire quarterback room got infected and like they don't want to go through that again. Like they had talked about like postponing games or like finding teams. That was all an empty threat. I think we all knew that from the start. Yeah. And I think the way that the postponements went the last couple of weeks where there were some things moved around, they're trying their best to help out. This kind of satisfies some of that need for being safe, but without the postponements, right? Where it's like, if it's only 5 days and we have 6 days until there's another game, you can literally test positive on Monday and then stay home for 5 days and probably come back fine and not have to worry about it for Sunday. And in week 16, it matters more than week 15 than week 14. Like there are teams trying to vie for a playoff position, like not fantasy. Obviously, all of us in fantasy care, but like a lot of teams in the NFL. I mean, how many teams have even clinched a playoff spot at this point? Like 1 or 2? I mean, we're in week 16. 3, usually by now it's like, 10 teams out of the 14 or 12 or whatever are already locked in. We're seeing a ton of teams that are going to have to play this week for their chance in the postseason. So I think it all kind of, it all kind of blends together, and it's hard to say what the reasoning is, but at the same time, these are the rules we have to play with. And all season long, last year too, in fantasy and the NFL, be flexible. That's all we can be. And that's what they're trying to do. So, all right, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. I mean, we've been dealing with it all year. You just got to roll with it. But I guess it's kind of nice to know there's opportunity for them to come back for our lineups. But if you only have one more week, then this is the only week that matters. So, yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about earlier, like if you had a guy that played on Saturday and he had COVID, like Tyreek Hill, you had to take the chance. Or I believe he played Sunday, and a guy in my league had Michael Pittman. He's like, so what do I do? Do I play
Saturday
Michael
night.
Pittman, or do I just throw in Tyreek Hill and hope for the best? And I don't think he had a backup plan because I don't think there was anybody else that he could pick up. So luckily he started Tyreek Hill. It worked out for him. But that's the stuff you got to face in Dynasty fantasy football right now. I mean, I play fantasy basketball right now in one league, and that is decimated in the NBA right now. You can't find any starters for your teams right now. So that's a good thing. NFL hasn't had to skip any games. They've played every single game that I'm aware of. So, I mean, they're trying to find the right ways to go about it, and they're making it work for right now.
I don't think this is possible for you to see this, but this is my entire fantasy basketball lineup. My entire injured and or COVID. That's the same thing in basketball. The entire everyone, they're all out. I have like 2 players out of 25.
Well,
so
isn't it only like week 3 in the NBA fantasy season? You got time. You'll figure it out.
It's week 10. It's week 10, and there's 22
I don't play NBA,
weeks.
Clearly, I don't bother with this stuff.
But yeah, it's a disaster, and it's completely destroyed my team. So the fact that we've made it through this fantasy football season is incredible, honestly.
Listen, I've said that. Really said that all season. I'm like, the fact that we went through 15, 14, whatever you want to call it, 14 weeks of not much of this is something that I think we should look at and go, oh, thank goodness. And then, it gets messy in the playoffs, which is the worst possible time for us in fantasy. But in the big scheme, like the big picture, the grand scheme of things, we got real lucky to get as much football as we did without a lot of intervention. So I'm just happy about it. If you made the finals, yes, there's some luck. I know in my home league, they're talking about adding an asterisk to this year for COVID. And I was like, well, we might as well add it last year. I won it in 1920, and I'm looking to win it again, where it's like 3-peat. I don't mind having an asterisk by my name as long as my name's on the trophy. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, at this point, like you can put whatever you want. Put a C by it. I don't care. It's still my title.
Win's a win.
Right? And I know that there's a lot of people out there that have been struggling with bad luck and bad beats and all this. And I just wrote an article for Fantasy Pros where it's like, honestly, if we all played this game with the expected winner winning, how boring would this be? Like you have to have upsets. You have to have a little bit of fluctuation. You have to have some variability to make it worth playing. Otherwise, everybody wins, then nobody wins. Like, what are we doing? Like, you got to have a little bit of randomness, and that's what makes it so exciting. So, as much as we want to, complain and bitch about not being in the finals for XY, listen, if you're in any finals, you're having a good time. If you're not, join more leagues, problem solved, and you'll be in more next year. I mean, I'm not even kidding. Like, that was one of the main reasons I joined so many leagues a few years ago. I'm like, well, if I'm only in 2 leagues and I'm out of the playoffs, I got nothing. But if I'm in 10, I got more chances. So, it gives me more fun.
Saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
All I'm looking for.
Exactly. All right. Well, Andrew, are there any injuries that have caught your eye here? I know Jimmy G has an issue with his thumb. We've seen quarterbacks play through it before. We've seen quarterbacks miss time. So it's kind of up in the air, I guess. They're trying to play coy with it, but it sounds like he doesn't need surgery from everything that I've read. Is it Trey Lance season or what? Are we rolling with this guy? If Jimmy G's ruled out and Trey Lance is in and you're in a championship, are you putting Trey in your lineup?
I actually have this exact situation in my home league. I have ridden Ryan Tannehill, Taysom Hill, and Matt Ryan to the final game, where it's like like piecing together.
That's a rocky quarterback trio there.
Oh, it's terrible. I've tried to trade for Josh Allen and Kyler Murray. Nobody's trading because I've won 2 years in a row, so nobody wants to trade.
Oh yeah, nobody's giving you those guys.
So I got Taysom off waivers. I got Ryan off waivers last week, and I'm looking at now where I've got Taysom and Lance, who I picked up off waivers. And I honestly, I'm probably, it's going to come down to Sunday morning if I play Taysom Hill or Trey Lance. And I'm like, if you would have told me back when I drafted that I'd be making the decision between Taysom Hill and Trey Lance, and honestly, legitimately having to they're both valid options. Like neither one of them are like crappy choices. Like Taysom Hill is like a top 10 quarterback if he plays, and he's set to play.
Right.
He came off COVID, right? But Trey Lance has what could be a lot of upside. And in a championship game and in a redraft league, I kind of like upside in the championships, right? Where it's like, give me the big boost guy.
Yeah,
I mean, I'd
for it.
rather win 94-90 than lose 74-70. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go all guns blazing, give me all the points I can. So I actually was hoping to get you guys to answer this for me, where it's like, what would you start, Trey Lance or Taysom Hill? Because I'm leaning Trey Lance at this point. I think a lot of the experts are saying Taysom Hill, but if Trey starts, I don't know. I feel like that offense, he's going to come out there and they're going to want to showcase him. They spent a lot of money, a lot of picks, whatever you want to call it, on this guy. Do I start him over Taysom Hill, which is, again, an awkward question because that offense in New Orleans is so bent to weirdness. It just, I don't know. I think I go Trey Lance, but what do you think, Chev? Who should I start there?
Yeah, I actually really do like Trey Lance, man. I think he is a stud. He's got the rushing ability. Plus, look at his weapons around him. I mean, that alone, I think, helps me push him over Taysom for this week. Debo, Ayuk, throw it Kittle. I mean, it's a huge offense
Jeff
now.
Wilson.
That is Jeff Wilson.
Like running backs out of the backfield.
Yeah, we're going to – Hasty McTasty. We talk about him a lot on the Dynasty Rewind, but I don't know how big he'll be in the game. But, yeah, I really do like Trey Lance. I actually got to watch his first start in Arizona. And the dude is just a magician to get out of the pocket and get that rushing ability. So I think you're on the right path with Trey Lance, man. I think he's the way, especially in the championship, getting that upside. And I think he's got that rushing ability that's going to be pretty huge for you.
Well, and just to mention this too, Kyle brings this up in the chat. Players coming off COVID list have not been great in their first weeks back.
Except for Nick Chubb.
Hill. True. I especially worry about Hill since his value is so tied to his rushing. I completely agree. And I think the way New Orleans is set up, Taysom Hill's scary anyway. Right? Like, honestly, like he's got a high ceiling, low floor. I think Lance might have similar floor, but a higher ceiling or maybe more consistent output. Like, I don't know. I'm with you though, Chev. I think that Lance is just going to be one of those guys that I could see us talking about next week. Like, woof, man, he got 4 touchdowns rushing and 3 passing. Can you believe it? Like, it could be like that Alvin Kamara of this year. Like, that'd be amazing. So
there you go.
I'm speaking it into existence, but maybe Scott, maybe you have a different opinion. Am I on the wrong track here? What do you think about Trey Lance?
No, yeah, I mean Trey's my guy from just going back to rookie season. So yeah, I'd be rolling with him. Like Chev said, too many weapons there, man. So you got to go with the upside too. And yeah, I mean, basically with the exception of Nick Chubb, Kyle Center is exactly right. I mean, everybody's been slow coming back.
Even
I mean, you think about
Cam, there's a bunch of players that have struggled. Yeah.
I mean, what does it do? It wears you down and it saps your energy. And so how are you going to play?
Yeah.
I mean, Tyreek didn't even have a good game. So yeah, I mean, you got to factor that in, I suppose. But ultimately, you got to make the decision and just roll with it and be confident in it and not look back, because yeah, it's one game and it is the championship and all that, but process over results. You just gotta make the right choice and move forward and live with it.
Well, ultimately what it comes down to in most of my decisions is I'd rather Lance do nothing in my lineup than blow up on my bench in this week. Like this is for all the marbles. It's this one game is all that matters. I'm not trying to get a win and squeak into the playoffs in week 9. You know what I mean? Like there's a floor argument to be had during the season and like who can actually be safer for me. And like at this point, if I don't win, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like I get second place, it's over. There's no long-term effects to any of this where it's like, I'd rather go with my gut and be like, I'm putting my stamp on this and I'm doing it. And to be honest, this is going to sound strange too. This is a keeper league that I'm in, and you can only keep the player if you draft them and then they never hit waivers. The only way you can keep them, if you drop them and pick them back up, you don't get to keep them.
So right? Lance isn't keepable.
So I drafted Lance in the 15th, our last round. I drafted him to keep him on my bench to be like, hey, he's going to be my keeper, like a really cheap quarterback keeper for next year. And it got to that COVID point where there were a whole bunch of injuries, whole bunch of COVID guys, and I'm like, I have to draw, and it's week 8 or 9 or whatever it was, where it's like I have too many injuries. I can't stash this guy anymore because he's not IR eligible. He's just not playing. So I dropped him for like Jeff Wilson or something, and I won that week, which was good for me. So then I picked him back up, of course, and now I'm like, well, I drafted him. I wanted this guy for this exact reason. So not that it matters for keeper's sake, but like I predicted this way back in August, where I'm like, this was my game plan. I'm sticking to it. So it's almost like it's not even my gut now. It's like my gut now and my gut then all kind of comes together to be like, that was the plan. I'm going with it. Let's see what happens. How bad could it be? I lose? Yeah. All right. I lost with Trey Lance. That's fine.
It's funny that you mentioned that too, because I have a league very similar. We don't have that waiver thing. It's just wherever they're drafted is the round that you lose. But I have had like ETN, Dobbins, Deshaun Watson. I have a whole slew of guys just taking up my bench spots because I'm like, man, I'm gonna be so stacked for next year. And then now I'm in the championship. So I'm like, wait a minute,
That's awesome.
Do I need to drop these guys and like figure it out? But it's like, I'll have Jonathan Taylor and Antonio Gibson, and it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? So I don't even know what to do. But these are the best problems to have, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got COVID year. Got all the depth in the world that you could ask for. Hopefully next season, if you are able to keep those guys somehow. So
exactly,
that's huge. The depth. Building the teams, like if you don't have any depth this year or last year, you are in big trouble. There's no way you're going to get to the championship at all because you just never know. You just never know exactly when you're going to lose that guy. And injuries have been pretty insane as well. So it's been crazy.
I'll add another angle to that. I think running back depth, to be more specific, like wide receivers, you have. I would even, and this is overgeneralized, it's not backed up by data, but I would say there's 20 startable receivers every week. You have 20 guys that you're fine starting. You have no problem throwing them in your lineup every week. But after 20, there are probably 60 receivers I could advocate for starting.
Yeah,
right? So it's like receivers, especially week to week matchups and cornerbacks and like who's playing what and are they going to be favored? And there's all these other aspects to it. With running backs, it's like having guys like Tony Pollard on your bench and like Damian Harris who showed up, and then Darrell Henderson and James Conner. My God, like all these guys that are like, lower level, quote unquote, lower level running backs that are on your bench that are actually at the later point of the season have saved my season, and as well as many others, where it's like that running back depth is really what's carrying you. Yes, depth matters, but running backs more than ever. And I always
say the cheap ones.
Well, true, but even then, like redraft running backs matter more. In Dynasty, I would say receivers matter more because it kind of the valuation is different. In redraft, it's always win now. Every team is win now.
Right.
And running backs are win now assets. We always talk about this too with rebuilding teams and all this. You get rid of all your running backs if you're rebuilding. Just throw them away. It doesn't matter because by the time you're ready to win, they won't matter anymore. The value will be gone. But in redraft, everybody's win now. So you have to get a bunch of running backs. And the more you can put on your bench, the better you're going to be to withstand this kind of, I don't know, COVID tornado, right? Where this like COVID NATO comes through, or like some crazy injuries happen. Like Dalvin Cook misses a week for some reason, or DeAndre Swift, as we've seen, like these top tier guys. Like in my my home dynasty league, I've got Cook, Eckler, and Swift, who all missed last week. Oof. And I still was able to win because I put in Rex Burkhead, we were just talking about him,
Justin
Jackson and Wilson. Where it's like I was able to throw in these other guys who had good opportunity that I could actually make it and be like, all right, here you're going to go. And that's really what it comes down to in Dynasty and redraft. But like if you're going to be in a win now position, getting those high value handcuffs, for lack of a better term, are really what makes and breaks your season as you get down the stretch, because you need that running back position. And I think everybody loves to talk about zero RB, and this is the prime year for it because those later guys, those cheaper running backs are really what's winning people leagues. And receivers, I mean, you can get away with it because you can start a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, he puts up 25 points. You can start a guy like, I don't know, Ray McLeod, I think, was started in one league and he won. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? He's got 6 targets and whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're a receiver. Who cares?
Yep.
But running backs, it's the opportunity is king, and you're not going to find that on the waivers. Like Boston Scott.
Well, that's exactly making my point why I hate running backs. And what I mean is I hate the elite running backs, because what it costs you to get Dalvin Cook, I can get T. Higgins and Alexander Madison. And if I had T. Higgins and Alexander Madison last week, I won, basically. You know what I mean? And there was a league where I started 6 running backs last week because I had Justin Jackson and Madison and Jeff Wilson and, all these guys that I can just plug in for 1 week. Those guys, half of those guys I picked up off waivers at some point. So it didn't cost me anything, or it was a very cheap expense. And whereas I could put the capital into the quarterbacks or an elite tight end, something like that. And so that's why when I say I hate running backs, it's just because when I don't want to give up all that value for one player where I can add 3-4 running backs with almost nothing that, waivers and 3rd round picks, and they can plug in any given week and win you a week.
I'll spin it forward. of the two players that I'm going to mention, which one would you rather start, Dare Gunbowale or Isaiah McKenzie?
Dare,
without even a question, right?
Yeah.
Like he was on waivers in almost every dynasty league I'm in, maybe a couple that he was taken. Isaiah McKenzie was also available, but Isaiah McKenzie as a receiver is probably a receiver 3 or 4, but Dare jumps into the running back 1-2 conversation, to be honest. And now obviously a lot of players are coming back off COVID, like Cook and Eckler and all these guys I mentioned before. But like Dare Gunbowale is going to like literally jump into an opportunity, which could be 20 touches. That's not going to happen for Isaiah McKenzie. He might jump into an opportunity for 3 touches or 0 touches or 8 touches. Receivers are so fluctuating, it's hard to say. So I'm saying I agree with you entirely, Scott. Like running backs, especially when you get them later in the year, and if you can actually, and this is actually happening in a bunch of leagues, if you can pick up guys like Jeff Wilson through the season on little minor trades or throw them in on dynasty trades, right? And be like, hey, I'll take this, but just add Jeff Wilson. Like just do that throughout the year and like kind of buffer your bench. If you're really a win now team and you feel like you're a contender, those are the kind of moves that will save your ass come week 14. We see it every year. And again, I know Scott, someone who's got 50 leagues or whatever, like those little tiny things
46.
add up too. Well, I'm rounding up, but those kind of things add up too, right? Where it's like those little guys. Well, congrats on the new league. I didn't know. You birthed a new one. But I'm saying more like those little tiny things make a huge difference later on. And adding a guy like Isaiah McKenzie most likely won't. Right, like adding, even if you add him off waivers, I saw him go for fab money more than Dare Gunbowale in 2 different leagues, and I was like, I don't see the logic there. Like, I get you might be again, every setting, every league has their own rules, and if you start 3 receivers versus 2 running backs, and you're short on receivers this week because you have Calvin Ridley and you've got Allen Robinson, like all these players that are just not doing it. Okay, fine, context matters. I always say that. But at the same time, you're going to get more value from a Dare than you will from an Isaiah, right? Well, and those running backs show up. It's just they do every time.
Even if they get shut out this week, Dare could have 12 carries and 6 catches. And so if he gets me 12, 15 points, I can probably live with that. Honestly.
Speaking about Dare, I know you read my article, Scott, but I think it's funny that a lot of the talk is that like the Patriots run defense is pretty stout. Like, do I really trust Dare against the Patriots? I don't know if you know this, but a bunch of their like best running back against has been with backup running backs. Dearness Johnson, Dontrell Hilliard, Deonta Foreman, like all these guys that are not great running backs are able to run all over them in the last 5 weeks. Even like this isn't like week 2 we're looking back to. Like Dearness Johnson was, I think, week 8. And that's the furthest back we go. But like Tennessee with the 2 backup running backs ran all over them in week 13, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not that afraid of the Patriots defense. As much as I love them for a defense in fantasy, and they are very stout, they had a game against Buffalo, and it was in the snow when Damian Harris ran all over them, and we knew they were going to run it. I think Mac Jones threw, 3 passes that game, completed 1 to Jonnu Smith. They ran every single down. Like, it wasn't even a surprise. And that was, like, literally both teams were even running the ball all the time. And so it's like, it just that kind of game, you don't get that. That's a weird anomaly. Throw it out. But I don't think the Patriots are that stout. And so I'm looking at it even as a weekly matchup because now, and it's actually somebody in one of my leagues mentioned this. It's a perfect analogy. This week being championship week is like a DFS week. It's literally like 1 week for the whole set of Nuggets. This is it. You can build all the dynasty you want, but this week for the title, you go all in. You trade for those players that you think are going to have a good 1 week. It doesn't matter where they go after this, right? And if you still have a trade, if you don't have a trade deadline, you can still trade. These are the kind of trades you should be looking at. And we'll get into some of that later. But again, it's like these are where injuries and like changes of values can really come into play as we get into championship week. So I'm excited for it, obviously, as you can tell. But I'm really it's always running backs for me. It's always running backs as you get down through the season. It's like focus on receiver. As the season goes on, they get less important. Running backs get way more important every single year. We see it every year.
And speaking of running backs, we've talked about Cam Akers a lot on this show. And it's pretty awesome that what they did for him, essentially to give him his pension year. Like that's very classy move there by the Rams. But then Darrell Henderson gets hurt.
Yep.
So, wow. Then we're seeing all these, is he practicing? Oh my God, is he going to play? I mean, okay, there's all that speculation, but Chev, what do you think as far as Cam Akers overall from a dynasty perspective? Are you taking this and saying, let's use this hype to sell? Or are you going, hey, maybe this guy really can break the mold? Like I personally, I'm not going to bet against history. So to me, I'm not buying, but I might hold a couple shares and then I might use this to sell a couple shares. So where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to take the hype whenever you can and sell some players. I mean, it sucks. Obviously, we want to keep a good running back. I mean, he's young as well. So obviously, we want to keep those guys, but also their value, whenever times like this come around, like they could be super high. So I think you definitely got to check what the market looks like for Cam Akers. Some people might be thrown off of the Achilles injury. I know he came back in 5.5 months or whatever it was. So that might throw some people off, but man, you definitely have to test the market whenever you can, especially with running backs. Like you guys are saying, like these guys disappear from the league in 4 or 5 seasons usually. Once they get the extra contract, it's usually donezo time for them. Todd Gurley, I mean, that guy was a stud running back, and then out of the blue, out of nowhere, this guy is just out of the league, no job. Devonta Freeman's in the league, and he's not in the league anymore. So, I mean, that's insane to me. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking to get rid of Cam Akers. If the price is right, why not? Especially in a time where there's going to be a lot of hype coming up for the draft. So, I mean, if you can get some draft picks for him, you might be able to give those away and get you somebody that maybe hasn't had that kind of injury and help bolster your team up for the upcoming season. So, I love the story. Cam Akers is a good running back. I really love watching him at Florida State, watching him break people's ankles 5 yards in the backfield where he was getting hit about every single play. So, good player, but I think you definitely need to test the market and see what you can get for him. The hype is real right now.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think we always talk about like buy as high as you can, or sorry, sell as low as you can and buy as low as you can. I mean, any blurb can change a player's value. And I think whether he plays or not right now before the game is probably the best option you have as a sell high point for the next, 8 months, because really running backs don't tend to go for more than they would during the season after the season. And so what you end up, my personal experience over a number of leagues, not as many as 47, Scott, but my experience is like during the season, running backs get more valuable, like we just talked about. And Cam Akers could have a bump right now. And if you want to get out, now's your chance. If you don't, and if you don't find that price, you don't have to sell. I think this is something we always talk about too. Timing is everything, right? Like you don't have to get rid of him. He's not, he's not the worst guy ever. But if you don't sell now, you might as well hold until August, and people start looking at lineups and saying, all right, well, I need a running back because player X got hurt, or, the rookie that I drafted, like Trey Sermon this year, isn't looking good or whatever. Like there is a whole bunch of that going into like the weeks right before the season. So it's almost like if you don't sell now, you don't find the right price now. That's fine. That's fine. Hold on to him. As a buyer, I don't know if I'm buying right now. I feel like if his current manager is looking to move him, he's probably trying to do it at some sort of premium or at full value or full cost. And I totally get that. Like I just said a second ago, this is the time to sell. That means it's not the time to buy, right? Like unless you can get a discount where somebody is willing to say, hey, this is my best chance to get out. He's only going to go down after this. I'll send him for 2 seconds. Okay, I'll send 2 seconds for Cam Akers. Like seconds are lottery tickets. You know what I mean? And literally every league is so unique. It's impossible to give generic advice on something that's specific. But if you go and you look at your league and you're like, hey, you know what? I kind of like Cam Akers. I think he might actually blow up this week. I think, if you're convicted in that and feel that, and you want to send an offer of 2 seconds or a second and a second and a Jarvis Landry, you know what I mean? Like pick a guy, like a bench clogging receiver, like Tyler Boyd in a second. You know what I mean? Like one of those, like, who knows? Maybe the guy will be like, I don't like that, but you add a third and I'll do it. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, all right, fine. Yeah, exactly. Like it's up to you what you think is the right value. And we're not here to tell you what the value is. None of us on this podcast are even trying to say we can predict or are setting the market. It's more like whatever you think he's worth, now might be the time to ask. You might get laughed out of your DM where the guy's like, I'm not selling him for Landry in a second. Are you kidding me? He's coming back. He's going to be hot. Okay. Just checking. Just thought I'd offer. There's nothing wrong with a bad offer at this time of year. And it's like, hey, it's worth checking the price. Like you said, Chev, like I don't mind at all looking at it, tapping the glass and be like, what are your thoughts on this? Because the other guy might be looking at this as the moment to get out. I'd rather be the guy at least showing interest if they went out than the guy who didn't show interest and he gets sold. How many times do we hear about this? He gets sold for something. You're like, I would have given you more. Like I hate that missing out, that FOMO. So I'm one of those people that I'd rather send an offer to somebody like, hey, FYI, here's my price. Here's what I'm willing to offer. Let me know if it's any interest. And they just immediately reject and are like, you're out of your mind. I'm like, hey, I'd rather you do that than you sell them for less than I thought I could get. Like I'd rather you get a better deal. I get the guy I want. We all win. That's kind of where I'm at. So this is the perfect kind of guy for that.
If you don't reach out, you never know. That's the thing. I'll throw anybody out there. Like, if I'll ask any manager that is in my league, like, hey, is blah, blah, blah on the block? Hey, would you be interested in this guy? Why not? The worst thing they can say is no. If they say yes, then you work what you can get. I mean, you do what you can do, right? So I think that's a big problem in Dynasty. People are kind of scared to reach out to the owners or just throw an offer out there. I mean, if you get laughed out of a DM, hey, you tried. I mean, what are you going to do? Next time, maybe this guy needs a lot more for these players because he values them higher than me. Now you know that, though.
Well, and I've been one of those guys in almost every league, not every league, but in almost every league where I'm really active in trying to rebuild or trying to retool or what have you. I'm sending offers like every couple of days. I send a different offer to someone just just really more to ping them and to let them know I'm interested in somebody and be like, hey, I sent an offer. I think it was Kamara and a first for Barkley and McLaurin. And I'm like, I don't know if that trade gets done. Like, I don't know if anyone would accept that trade. But both Barkley and McLaurin are kind of like, I don't know if I want to deal with this anymore kind of assets. Yep. Kamara, I mean, yeah, he's getting older and he might not be. I don't want to deal with him either. But that first, that's future. Maybe somebody takes that pick. I could also see somebody looking at that going, you are way off on valuation. I do not think that's right. I don't mind being told I'm ridiculous because then it's like, well, just a starting point. I'm not going to take it personal. But what I don't like is somebody coming to me after I made a trade saying things like, I would have given you more. Like, where was your offer? I'm not going to send an offer to everyone in the league if I'm shopping somebody. I mean, yes, sometimes I do. But if I get an offer I like, I'm going to take it. I'm not always going to go out there and shop. And we talk about this on this whole DAP network, right? The whole trade addicts and everything. Like, we talk about this all the time. Like, trading is fun. That's one of the main reasons I like Dynasty. It's like, just, you can't win them all, but you also, it's fine if you don't lose them all either. Like, you never know what you're going to get. So keep talking, keep communicating for sure.
Speaking of championships, I know this league called the Dynasty Rewind Listener League. And let me tell you, I think there's somebody here on the show tonight that's in that championship. And no, I'm not talking about me. I'm actually playing Bauer in the 12th place game. So yeah, not my year with the injuries. Although you'd be pretty surprised who's on my team now I'm that bad, because I certainly am. But anyway, Chev, you're playing against our man Dynasty Price, Garrett Price versus, I mean, you guys go way back. Yep. You have this rivalry. You guys are friends, and you're playing in the championship. I mean, wow, it's gonna be a good one. So in this league, it's a one quarterback league. Is there anything different that you're gonna do this week, knowing it's the championship, knowing who your opponent is? Does your strategy change at all? Is there anything from any standpoint? Is there anything strategically you're going to do differently?
Yeah, so this week I took a real deep look at the waivers, looked at Garrett's team, is like, hey, who could Garrett pick up and how much fab dollars does he have left? And so I'm like, all right.
Bingo.
I do not want Garrett to get maybe lucky Rex Burkhead. Don't want that to happen. Don't want him to get Dare. So I go out there, I bid $40. I think he has 39. I saved up a lot this season just so he didn't get him. He didn't put a waiver claim on him or anything like that, but I just made sure that he did not get them. So that's definitely one way I was trying to get ahead.
You got both of them.
Yeah, I got both. Nobody's paying attention right now, apparently. So I know. I mean, it's the Master versus the Padawan. I once broke his quesadilla maker, so I'm sure he's coming out for a lot of vengeance right now. But man, I love Garrett. I look forward to hopefully beating him. I mean, Michael Bauer will tell this story 1,000 times if he could. He once beat Garrett Price in a Superflex league with no quarterback.
No.
So next time you get the chance, Mike would love to tell that story. I'm sure Garrett wouldn't want to tell that story, but Mike will tell it every time he's able to. So
I didn't know Mike knew what Superflex was, so that's exciting.
Mike somehow is a Devi guy now, and I'm not sure he still knows that, but I love what he's doing, man. Mike is a funny guy. Sometimes I'm a little curious about what he says on some players, like Kenny Yeboah. Sometimes I get a little nervous for him, but Mike stays true to his word, man. He goes and gets his guys, the Michael P. Ryan. He loves those guys. So I will have to give him that. He does stick with his analysis, sticks with the guys that he loves.
He does.
Hopefully he gets a lot of points out of Drew Lock this week. I know he really likes him too.
Oh man, that is a great league. We have quite the characters in that league, so that's definitely a fun one.
Yeah, we don't even take the money in that league. We just wait till the last week to have somebody ask what's the payout. So
yeah, we need to call out the commissioner on that one. Yeah, Bauer, that's not gonna fly, brother.
So hopefully we can get it back together next season. Hopefully we can somehow get some money so me and Garrett can buy.
No, you guys are getting paid. No, you guys are getting paid this year. There's absolutely no way that you're not getting paid. That is crazy. We will make it happen.
I appreciate that.
Figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's. I mean, I would be pissed personally. So
I'm not gonna lie. I was not the happiest when I found out that Bauer has not taken any money. I thought we already paid, to be honest. We're in so many different leagues. I just figured we already paid beforehand. So
that's why I checked the spreadsheet, man. I've got everything on the spreadsheet. So
that's a long spreadsheet for you, though.
It is. But hey, we're gonna get you that money. I promise you. Hopefully it's the first place money, but we'll see how that goes.
Well, that's always what it comes down to. Is the good league will make that right. You know what I mean? Like, even if it doesn't happen,
everybody
is a good guy. You guys will square that up. That's not going to be a problem.
No
it's
doubt.
Not a random league or anything.
No doubt. Yeah.
You're going to win, Chev. Let's be honest. You're going to win. It'll be great.
Hey, that's the goal, baby. My team's pretty good. We've last season was rough. I think we got first round pick. This year we're in the championship. So hopefully we can do some big things, man. I'm looking forward to it for sure. What do you guys think? I'm curious to get you guys' opinion on this. What do you guys think about splitting the money for a first and second place team?
This has been a good topic.
It's a big topic in the Twitter sphere, right?
Yeah.
I have thoughts, but go ahead, Scott. You go first.
Okay. So I'm gonna say it this way. Twice I have done it, and once. All right, twice I've done it. One time I absolutely crushed my opponent, and I was super pissed that we did it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then and I offered. So I've learned that I will never offer again. Mm-hmm. Probably, most likely, maybe a certain weird scenario, whatever. But in another league, which I believe was I actually think it was a Devy league. It was my first Devy league. I mean, I somehow made the championship. My team was awful, and the guy's like, "Do you want to do like us?" I was like, "Yes, whatever," because there was no chance I was winning. So I'm just gonna say that it has worked out for me once and not worked out for me once. So. Typically, I mean, I think, listen, if there's a payout structure that's established, people vote on it, that's what we're expecting for the season, that's fine. Now, I have no issue at all if I'm commissioning the league and, the two teams in the championship say, hey, this is what we're agreeing. We're just going to split it, or we're going to do a 70-30, or we're going to do this amount. I am 100% okay with that. It is totally up to you guys. It's your money. You do what you want with it. I'm super fine with that. Personally, I probably won't do it again because it cost me a lot of money overall. But I guess it would have to be a weird scenario. Maybe I would never say never, but probably not for me. Otherwise, I don't have a problem with people doing it if they want to.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is very similar. I have no beef with it. I don't have an opinion strongly one way or the other in a general what should my league do kind of sense. Whatever you guys want to do is fine. Like I'm not one of those people that tries to tell people how to play fantasy. Like that's just not me. Like if you want to have an 8-team league and you start 3 tight ends, go for it, knock yourself out. Right. If everybody agrees, I'm not joining that league, but if you guys have a league where that's all great, you guys have yourself a fun time. I will say too, if it's like a $5 or $10 buy-in league and it's like a cheap dealie and somebody sends me a message like, hey, do you want to split the pot? Because the winner, it's usually winner take all on those lower kind of things. You want to, okay, sure. I don't really, it doesn't really matter. I also will say I don't think I've ever, and I can't see myself ever in the future, maybe I'm wrong, reaching out, offering to someone to do that. I feel like I don't want to say I'm not cocky. I'm just confident where it's like, I go into the game expecting to win. Even if I'm not projected to win, I'm going to try to win. That's the whole point of this. And I feel like And I'm not even saying this is right for every league. I'm not, don't take this out of context. It's just like, for me personally, if I'm in the championship, I want to write it out the way we voted on things, you know, like whatever that was, whatever the system is, whatever the whole thing is, that's what we're doing. On the flip side, I have had somebody one time a few years ago, I was in the finals and somebody offered me the ability to do, you know, half and half or whatever for the finals. And I said, let me get back to you. I was like, let me think about it. And he goes, well, if you got to think about it, then you don't want to do it. So we won't do it. And I was like, okay. Like, I'm not going to say you're wrong, but like you offered, I said, let me think about it. Cause it was like a Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like I got time. I don't have to decide right now. It's not like 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I'm like, I got time. I can think about it. And he goes, well, if you got to think about it, then we would do it. I'm like, okay. I don't know why you offered if you're just going to rescind the offer that quickly. So I'd never actually have done it, to be honest. I've been in a bunch of championships. I've only had one person reach out, and the other idea was other than that one. And they were like, hey, what are your thoughts on, like, in general, what are your thoughts on splitting? And it's like, I usually don't go for it. And that was where the conversation ended. He didn't offer. I didn't offer. It was like, hey, just want to test the waters. My logic in general is if you get to the title game, the winner should get more money. If there's money on the line, the winner should get more. If you feel like your team isn't great and you're not confident and you're really a big underdog, and you don't have a trade deadline, you squirrel something together, figure it out, and honestly, be fine with coming in second. You know what I mean? Like, we can't win them all. As I just said in this article I wrote today for Fantasy Pros, like, it's okay to be second and be like, hey, I came in second out of 12. I put together the best team I could. At the same time, there's a lot of people that would love to come in second. Okay. You know, there's a lot of people that would love that second place money. And it's like, I kind of like having something more on the line championship week. So again, you do you. I'm not going to force you, my opinion on you. If your league wants to, and you're one of those people that likes to split, and it's, you know, you can, I just heard about this on the Trade Addicts Open Bar this week where FF Man Bun, you know, Gabe was talking about like splitting the pot and then starting waiver players. Like, I love, if you're going to make fun with it, hell yeah, like go for it. You know, do fun things.
That's funny.
But for me, it's just, I don't know. It's not, play with the team you got. Let's see who wins and we'll play it out. That's how I do.
Yeah, that's how I am most too. Like, I could see where like maybe somebody, a good person in the league that, you know, maybe they need the money. Sure, I'll split. I really don't care. But if it's like my rival, if it's my rival, nah, hell no, I'm not doing that. We're battling this thing out, baby. Or somebody that, you know, maybe has not been good in the chat with trades and like blasting the air and stuff out, you know. So I think I can see it going either way. I mean, to me, you made it to the championship. If that's what you two want to do, great. I really don't care. The money is really not what I'm playing for. I love it because it's fun. I love it. I want to win. It's trophies, man. I want to get that pride. Like you said, you're very prideful, and you want to have that confidence going into the championship game. So I'm right there with you guys on exactly what you guys said.
I want to piggyback on something you said, that there is that logic of like if someone reaches out and they could really use the money, you know. There was one year I did like kind of a side bet where I was in a championship game with someone and we didn't talk about it at all. But after the season ended and I won, I was like, hey man, do you want to do it like a week? Cause I knew we're friends. I knew he was kind of going through it and he was really beating himself up for losing. I was like, hey, what if we do like $100 side bet and you play your fantasy team against mine in week 18 or 17 that time? You know what I mean? Like, we'll just play the same. Like, it's just $100. Winner takes $100. You know what I mean? Like, we'll just call it even. And then I ended up winning that, and I was like, "No, I'm gonna keep it." You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to take $100 from you. But it was like one of those, like, you know, if you know your league and you know your league mates, and you can kind of make some fun out of it. I 100% love that. And I also, and this is kind of related, I like doing side bets with other people in the league that don't trust me to win. Right? Where it's like, hey, I'll bet you $20 I beat Mark. You know what I mean? Like, I'll bet you Chris. I'll bet you $20 I beat Mark. And then Chris is like, "Oh, I got it." Like, it just, you know what I mean? Like, just makes it a little bit more fun. It causes some trash talk in the trade chat and all this. Like, I don't know, just whatever it takes to make your league fun. I'm always on board. So yeah, there's no right answer to that.
That really, banter, you gotta love the banter, man. It's fun stuff.
And trash talk and like holding the championship over other people at the draft. I mean, that's the best part. When you walk into the draft, and even if, you know, redraft leagues like I'm in now, where I'm out going for my third in a row or something. And again, it's not entirely fair. Some of these guys have, you know, 9 kids and they can't keep track of things. And it's like, I'll gladly play you in fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, I got no kids. I got priorities. No time. Like, I do this for a living almost. Like, this is easy. But no, it's like it's all context, right? Like, it's all for fun. And I think too, if it's not going to be fun, that changes everything. If it's going to be stressful, if it's going to be, you know, causing a rift in your friendship group by doing something, then don't do that. right?
Yeah.
Whatever that is. If it's going to be like, hey man, it's a COVID week and I've got 7 players on IR. Would you mind splitting the pot? Sure. I'm not going to be a dick about it. You know what I mean? I find it makes sense. But like at the same time, I'm not going to be the one to offer that, even if I have 7 players on IR. It's just not how I roll.
No.
That's all.
Yeah.
So you mentioned our friend Gabe Gearing, FF Man Bun.
Oh yeah.
And I just want to take a minute here because Scott Fishbowl is something that's near and dear to many of us in the industry. And I want to talk about how there were over 13,000 entries this year into Scott Fishbowl, 1,920 teams total. Week 14 was the official start of the playoffs. There were 320 buys. You can get a buy based on points or record. Then there were 200 wild cards that advanced. I was fortunate enough to be one of those point wild cards because we had 3 of like the top 9 teams in my division, not just conference, in my division alone. Dwayne McFarland and Justin Lanero. And I mean, our division really beat on each other a lot. And so I do appreciate how Scott Fish runs the Scott Fish Bowl with doing that record and points so that you kind of get a little bit of that luck factor reduced.
Yep.
And so 520 teams make the playoffs ultimately, and then 200 advance to the following week. And then the top 20 teams from each conference play in week 16, and the highest score from each conference moves on, yielding a final 20 players for the Scott Fish Bowl championship. And, Peter Shanky from RotoWire, Gabe, as I mentioned, Mike Falla, Daddy's Home FF, Rich Dotson from Dynasty Nerds, our buddy JP Hurley from DTC, just a ton of awesome guys on here, a bunch of fans in it too. So you had industry, you had fans, you had a whole bunch of guys in there. And I am absolutely honored and privileged to be in that final 20. It has been a hell of a ride. It's been so much fun. I want to say thank you to everybody that's reached out. I have never in my life had so many messages, like Twitter and everything else. It's so awesome. It's been a lot of fun representing Junkies and Trade Addicts and the DAP Network and everybody that I've been in leagues with over the years, because honestly, you guys have all made me better. Like it's all the discussions we've had and all the side chats and all the trades and all the theories and strategies and everything that we do, right? And then it takes a hell of a lot of luck, especially when you're talking this many teams to get down here. And I had a really, really rough week last week. I lost a lot of semifinals, and I had Stafford, who got me negative points in Scott Fish Bowl. So I'd stopped paying attention. I didn't even look. And then it was like before the Monday night game, I was just checking everything, and somebody was like, dude, you're in first in your conference. And I was like, what? And I went and looked, and then there were 3 people that could have caught me and 2 were done. And I was like looking, and I was like, that pretty much would need a miracle to lose at this point. So that was awesome, knowing that Dak's big performance put me over the top, and then Jalen Waddle Monday night. So it's amazing. And I would just say that I would trade all of my championships for a Scott Fish Bowl win. So
Could you imagine?
A lot of people are in the same boat. So I'm definitely going to be going for it. But setting that lineup is going to be like the most traumatizing thing I ever do. And I haven't even looked at it this week because I don't know what to do at this point. So
I was going to ask, do you need help? Do you need a hand? What
I do. I think I'm just going to put it on Twitter and just have everybody set my lineups because I can't do it.
I wanted to say this too. Like, obviously I'm pulling for you, Scott. I was in the finals up until last week, or the semifinals or whatever.
Yes.
And my whole team screwed the pooch. I went for upside. I played Mac Jones, who lost me 9 points, kind of like you were saying. Like, I went for upside because I'm like, it's actually a big tournament. I got to differentiate. I got to be the number one in my division, my conference.
Correct.
And it didn't pay off. It happens. That's okay.
Yeah.
But when I saw that you had advanced, I was like, oh, hell yeah. And then I saw, of course, Gabe advanced. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. And Rich Dodson from Dynasty Nerds. Like, there's a lot of good people in this. So again, like I'm kind of, I don't want to say all the way, but I'm kind of with you. Like, having a Scott Fish Bowl title, especially these later years as it's gotten huge, like SFB 9, SFB 8, when it was still like, 1,000, 1,200, whatever, like that's huge. Don't get me wrong. but being like the champion of 1900 teams, some of which are names you will never get to play in a league with,
right.
That's just the fact that you're in the final 20 is well done, sir. I know I wanted to make sure we brought that up. And I know Gabe brought it up on his not his, but on the Trade Addicts podcast, where it's like, I would love to see Gabe win it too. Great guy. You know what I mean? Like
any of that group I just mentioned, I will be honored to have played against them. Honestly, it would be great to have them and represent the Dynasty community. And hey, us Dynasty guys know a little bit about redraft too. But what I posted immediately after was, the only reason that I am in this position is because I used to play in 13 redraft leagues, right? And then the next evolution was a keeper league, right? And then the next evolution was a dynasty league. And now I'm in Devy leagues. And it's just, it made me better at each one. I made the playoffs in every single redraft and keeper league I'm in. And I've done that for like 3 years straight now. And I mean, that takes an incredible amount of luck, no doubt. But being in dynasty has made me better at that. So
I'm right there with you. I was just going for my 3-peat in this home keeper league, and I joined Dynasty 3 years ago. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Nope.
Definitely, that's not pure luck. It's because I'm focusing on it all year, and I think a lot of what I used to do, and I played fantasy for, what feels like 20 years now, if not longer. And it's like in redraft, I would always just kind of like when my season ended in week 12, I would move on, and I didn't care, and then I have to pick it all back up in August. Whereas now it's like with Dynasty, I don't ever turn it off. And I feel like that makes my drafting decisions better. It makes my everything a little bit easier. It's not quite as jarring to kind of get in and out of things. So again, like I 100% agree with you. I think that Dynasty makes you a better player. I know that I've had other friends of mine that I've kind of brought into Dynasty that have said the same thing. And just being focused on fantasy all year helps. So I do think that it's nice to see Dynasty players like you and Gabe and others do well in the Scott Fish Bowl, because it kind of puts some credence to this whole thought of like, there's not just one way to play this, but at the same time, Dynasty is for those diehard fanatics. And it's kind of like, you can be better if you learn how to play Dynasty. It's not a cause and effect that way. It's the other way. If you're not, even if you're great at redraft, join Dynasty leagues. I always tell people, I say it on Twitter all the time, like join another league, get more contact, more exposure. Learn a different format. Play in Superflex if you haven't. Play in PPR if you haven't. Play tight end premium if you haven't. Like, learn these other things, because it makes you sharper in every other way you can be. So yeah, I'm impressed. I'm really hoping you pull this off. That would be amazing, not only for the brand, but also for you as a friend. Like, I would love to see you win this. That would be amazing to take this down, Scott. So we're all pulling for you, man.
It would be epic, man. I am fully not expecting it, because if you look at some of you can click on the team. So like if you go to the website,
there's some monsters.
So I don't know how the ranking worked. Maybe it's from last week, but I'm at 6, and I'm just looking at like look at Rich Dotson's team. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to beat this team? But the interesting thing is my team last year, where I was consistently in the top 20 and then crapped like you did last week, Andrew, with that team. But like Mac Jones, Javonte Williams, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Pittman, Jalen Waddle, Cole Kmet, like I had a lot of these guys last year too. Some of those second year players, and then some of these rookies, I got later. And listen, I'm sure everybody knew those names, but it was just, when were you going to pull the trigger on them, and how were you going to put that roster together? And without Dynasty, I wouldn't have been able to, honestly.
Well,
so
I have a lot of similar players to you, so that's why I feel like we advanced on the same reason. I had Mac Jones. Obviously, didn't do me crap, that jerk.
Yeah, I didn't start him, so
I did like an idiot. I had Mark Andrews, Jalen Waddle. Like some of these players that are just like those dirt cheap guys, like Mark Andrews. I think I got him the 3rd or 4th. I forget even now. Like, he was just going late. And Waddle, same thing. Like in the Scott Fish Bowl, that whole draft takes place in July. It's such a tough draft. I don't know if people really realize, for those of us that are in it, it's kind of like the start of the fantasy season. And obviously we all blow it up on Twitter and everybody talks about it, but that is a tough time to draft, because there is so much uncertainty still going into things. Rookies are really undervalued, because even in July, you're like, I don't know where Waddle's going to be. I don't know what things are going to happen.
Right.
There were lots of players that took Dobbins and Akers and ETN and that are out of it. You know what I mean? Because they weren't injured yet. So, it's really a minefield to try to win through that. So again, there's a lot of luck and a lot of skill. So yeah, I think you've got a great team though, Scott. I got to be honest. You can do this. You've got a monster. And I think Don't start Mac Jones. You'll be fine.
I'm gonna pick the wrong guys, though. No doubt about that. So
come on, no.
But
put it out there, Scott. You're gonna do fine. I'm gonna win this. I'm gonna win
lineups is the one thing I hate. It's like,
man,
when there's something you enjoy so much, but there's always a negative or a downside to something. For me, it's lineups. I literally hate lineups. If all my leagues were just best ball, I would be so happy.
I'm right there with you. Lineups are my start sits are my worst. I hate it.
I want to kind of apply this though to some championship talk. So like if you're in like a multiple copy league and you're going against a guy that has some of the same players in the championship, are you really analyzing it on a case-by-case basis where you could say, listen, I'm going to bench this guy because my opponent has him and he has a tough matchup, and maybe I'm going to start somebody else and try to game the system a little bit, or kind of go DFS, right? Where hey, these guys all have Mark Andrews. Do I sit Mark Andrews then? And that sounds crazy, right? Because he's absolutely tearing it up. Doesn't even matter who's at quarterback, right? But what if 12 of these 20 teams in the finals have Mark Andrews, including myself? So if we start him, is the rest of my team good enough to beat them? And I think in this case, you take the points. But if you're in a one-on-one battle here, I'm very curious would you ever take that strategy? Have you ever even thought about doing that?
I have, and I think my 20 years of redraft or whatever that's led up to this, I feel like a lot of times I look at the lineup and I'm like, if they're starting Josh Allen, I want to start Stephon Diggs, or if they're starting Patrick Mahomes, I want to start Tyreek Hill, right? I think in the last couple of years, I've really gone away from that, and I don't care what the other team is doing at all anymore. I just want to start my best lineup. And in a two copy league, it's a little different because they could have the exact same player. But my thought is I'd rather win on the margins then. Like, I'd rather have us all have the same player and all win or die by that same value, right? Where it's if they're starting Andrews, I want to start Andrews too. Like, just so it cancels out. It's one less player in the lineup that I have to worry about. I get the logic, right? But if you're in a one-on-one head-to-head kind of matchup in the finals against another team that has, 3 out of 10 players that are the same, because again, like, let's say you have Cooper Kupp, Mark Andrews, and Nick Chubb, right? All 3 of those guys are the match. I'm still going to start those guys. I can't see a logical reason in my mind for not playing the best team. Yeah, there is that discussion of most upside, right? And like, do I want to start X over Y? But I'm not going to sit my studs. Like, if we both have Russell Gage, all right, go ahead and start Russell. I'm not going to start, but I'm not going to sit Cooper Kupp or Mark Andrews because they have them, right? There's a difference there, right? So my logic is, I think what I would probably do in that situation is I would come up with my best lineup, put that in, submit it, be like, here's my best lineup, and then decide Sunday morning if I want to tinker on it. But I'm not going to tinker on the top 20 guys. That makes no sense to me, because you're just throwing away potential points at that point. There's no point to me for that. All right, Chev, are you on the same page here?
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I'm not in a league like that, but I think you still just got to start your best lineup, especially, if these are Mark Andrews, you have Mark Andrews that cancel out. You just got to go with it, man. You've got to play your studs that have gotten you there. I think if you try to go away from that, then you could definitely get hurt. It means Mark Andrews scores 30 points and you benched him. You're going to be kicking yourself for the next 30 years, probably, just thinking, man, what the crap was I doing? I just benched the guy's been scoring 40 points a game, it seems like. So,
I think we all get too cute. We all get too cute from week to week. Championship week is not the week to get too cute. Like, just focus on your game and put your best lineup together and let them do the same. And it's just mano a mano.
To that point, I don't spend time on lineups because number one, I don't like doing it, but I don't look at I don't even know who my opponent is until I check scores later in the week. So just anytime during the season, I'm just going through, I'm cranking out my lineups. I have a process that I use to make sure I don't miss anybody, injuries or COVID or whatever it may be. And, I have a process for that, but I don't look at who my opponent is, who they're starting, whatever. I just follow my process, and I use that process in every league. Sometimes it gets me because I didn't pay enough attention to that league is, this scoring or whatever. But you know what? Overall, at the end of the season, it's a winning strategy for me. It's a winning process by not tinkering with it and not messing with it. I don't go in and change them typically last minute, but it's when we get down to these playoffs where I have less leagues to look at. that I
Yeah.
start doing that a little bit more. And then it's, championship time. We have one game. This is it. This is one, we've never talked about a lineup on this show that I can ever remember in, 78 episodes that I've talked lineup strategy, because I don't play DFS and I don't know anything about that really, honestly. I even have leagues that are on autopilot. We've talked about that before, whereas like, hey, if I'm a rebuilding team, it's on my my playbook, and it autopilots and it just sets a lineup for me. Like, I don't even care. Honestly,
it doesn't matter.
If it could do all my leagues, I'd probably let it for the most part. But there's maybe a few that I would pay attention to a little more than the others. But championship week, everybody's overanalyzing their lineups.
Well, actually, I want to say this because I wanted to bring this up tonight. I feel like this is the perfect time to do it. There is something I do sometimes, and not in every league, but I will sometimes, like on a Thursday, like today, put in all of the top projected players just to kind of play a little mind game with my opponent to see if they're paying attention to my lineup, because there's nothing better than being like, I'm putting in 111 points worth of projected points and the other guy's got 106. Now he's thinking I'm the underdog and I've got to make some strives to be, the upside picks. And then come Sunday morning, I'm going to swap a couple of those guys out with who I think are going to do better, but ESPN has projected lower. I do that sometimes. This came up on Twitter too. Like, do you bench your entire lineup going up to Sunday? There was one league where I did that a couple years ago, just to like not show my cards. You know what I mean? Like the same kind of thing we're talking. You can look at my bench and find out who I'm starting, but like some of that is more mind games than actual lineup setting, and I love that part of this. Like, I don't do that in week 13. I don't do that in week 2. You know what I mean? Like, I do it just to make sure my lineups are set. But no, that's the only reason I do it. But yeah, no, I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of that, honestly. It becomes a thing, especially in like home leagues, which I think a lot of listeners that are paying attention, and I'm sure with the Rewind, it's the same. It's like with home leagues, when you have a guy that's got like 2 leagues, and one of them might be a dynasty and one might be a redraft, and he made the playoffs in the dynasty, he's focusing on that one league, and that's the whole week. I will go in there and like sometimes, and I don't know why this is, but Sleeper and ESPN, MFL, they all do this, where they'll have like, I don't know, Sammy Watkins projected for 12 points. And you're like, there's no way in hell he scores 12 points. I know that there's no way I'm starting him, but I'll throw him in there because the guy that I like, Jalen Waddle, only has 10.5 projected points. And I'm like, hey, that extra 1.5 points might mess with him a little bit. Who knows? And then Sunday, because again, like you said, Scott, I'm only down to a couple of leagues at this point, and I'm really caring. I'm not going to miss the change. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to forget to change my lineup on this week. Granted, in week 10, when I've got 20 lineups, I might. So that's why I don't do it. But this week, I'm not going to miss it. So I go in on Sunday morning and I swap Watkins out for Waddle. And again, I'm using numbers and names that are not accurate. But I go in there and I swap that out to be like, no, here's what I'm really playing. But by that point, it's in his head. He's now playing players potentially. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter because I don't really care what he's playing anyway. But it's almost like this like passive way of messing with your opponent that I love about this whole game. Like, it literally comes down to 1 week of pure luck that we see who wins the title. And I love that mind screw about it. Like, it's so fun.
Then your opponent's looking at Sammy Watkins like, what the crap am I missing?
Why is he starting Watkins? I got to start somebody who's going to score more than Watkins. I don't even know. Like, how do I do that? It's not week 1. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it just, I'm sure, even if it doesn't cause a ripple in anything, to me, it's more like that mind game where I'm putting it out there. Whether it gets received, I don't care. I'm putting it out there. And to me, that adds to my confidence.
Yep. I love that.
Yeah, little things like that. Also, like waivers. Like when it gets down to the last week, I will be one of those players. If I notice my opponent doesn't have a defense or doesn't have a good quarterback, I'm picking up and dropping every quarterback Sunday morning. You know what I mean? Like, I'm picking up and dropping every defense. Like, if it's in the rules, it's allowed. You know what I mean? Like, there was one year I actually lost a finals because a guy picked up and benched 7 defenses. And my defense, the only one that I had left was like the number 20 ranked defense. And like, he picked up all the better options that were still available, and I had to go with them. And I lost.
That's genius,
it wasn't because of my defense, but I respected the game. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right, you got me on this one. And it was like a whole thing in the league DM chat or whatever. Everybody's like, is that allowed? And I'm like, hey, I'm not complaining. Just for the record, like, he's doing it to me and I'm not complaining. It's legit. Good game, sir. And I don't think it affected me, but the gods saw it above and they were like, that's not your week. And it didn't matter. It wasn't my season. You know what I mean? But like, that was still like, well played, sir.
Yeah. Chess, not checkers sometimes. Sometimes you got to go a little off brand and do something a little crazy and mess with your opponent. I love it.
Yeah, more so in Dynasty, I feel like too, because it's a longer game.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All right. Well, I think that pretty much confirms it for me. I put in my Scott Fishbowl lineup on Twitter, and I'll let everyone else set it.
Love it. You know what? Live
I'm
and
a
die
man of
by
the people. Let's let them
Live
do
and
it.
die by the people. I love it. That's the way to do it too, because then if it doesn't work, all of you guys screw
I will
over.
blame everyone. I can literally blame everyone but myself. I mean, that's perfect.
If you win, though, you take a victory tour to all these places. You get to hang out with all them, drink beers with them, and have a good time. So I think your plan is beautiful.
It's kind of a win-win. Yeah.
You got it now. You're good to go.
Well, it's win, not lose. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Right. Exactly. Oh man. Hey, I want to get back to earlier in the show. One of our faithful here says, when retooling in the off season, are there any? I'm sorry, the non-point scoring season. Okay, still there's no off season in Dynasty. Are there any rules of thumb that you follow early on, like target a position or tier, trade for need, mentality, value, etc.? So if we're having fun talking about all these championships that we could potentially be winning, but what if you're in a league right now when you're not in the championship? Maybe you're a playoff team that was eliminated. Maybe you just aren't in the playoffs at this point, and you have no trade deadline. Are you trying to move players to those championship teams? Are you trying to make moves right now in general? Because I know a lot of people kind of check out and they're focusing on the leagues that they are in, and so there may not be as much activity. But maybe the two teams in the final are having an arms race, and you can move some players like that, which is always fun. But is there anything that either of you guys do specifically right now, or generally, strategy wise, with those teams that are not in it?
Chev, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so for me, if I'm not in it, I'm still looking to build my team. If I can find somebody on waivers that maybe is a free agent next year, like a Ronald Jones. I mean, obviously he's come up out of nowhere, but he's a free agent next year, possibly going to a different team. I want to go pick him up just in case his value goes up the next season. I mean, trading is insane. Like, you can pick up Ramondre Stevenson. He has one good game. The next game or next day, somebody might want him. Somebody might want to trade for him. And you just got him off waivers for free. So why not keep grinding? Keep grinding the tape. Keep watching watch the injuries. Watch who got COVID. Like, you only need one game to change that person's value. So I'm always looking for somebody that is on the waiver wire that maybe gets another chance somewhere else next season and ups their value. And I mean, I'm not many to no trade deadlines, but I mean, why not? If you're a rebuilding team and you can get max value now, come on. You got to do what you got to do. You never want to be in the middle either. So if you're a middle team and you need to rebuild, now is probably the perfect time to get rid of those guys and start building from the bottom and get those wide receivers, man. You want to get those wide receivers and build from that.
Yeah, you definitely want to get something that holds value, right? Like, you don't want to lose value. And there's a lot of value change between now and August. Let's be clear. Like, not necessarily always up or down too, but there's going to be a lot of value change between now and March, even, like, hell, before the draft and free agency and all that. There's going to be a lot of valuation change. And I think sometimes players get kind of stagnant or not lazy. That's not the word, but like, they're just kind of stale and just kind of like, hey, you know, I've done what I can do. And I've definitely got leagues where I feel like I've grinded all year and I've sent offers and no one's biting. And it's just like, I give up. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just go into the non-point scoring season and we'll see how it goes. And I'll get to the draft and then I'll make moves. I don't mind that, right? Like, that's fine. I want to say this though. I think you hit on something there. Like, even if let's say you're a bottom team, grinding the waivers can be one of the easiest ways to add value to your team, right? Where you can drop a player that nobody wants that's going to be on waivers anyway and pick up a guy like Dare or Raquel Armstead even, or like one of these guys that might show up. Trade deadline or not, that still could be a nice little value bump for your team heading into the offseason, because it could cause some blurbs to come out, or it can be like, hey, Raquel Armstead looked really good. He's going to get cut by the Jags, but he got signed by Atlanta. Now he's going to be their starting running back. You never know, right? Like, you never know. So I think retooling and rebuilding teams, I think are in my opinion, are the most fun. Obviously winning a title is number one, don't get me wrong, but being the bottom is actually my second favorite place to be, because it's like it's all risk, all reward. You know what I mean? Like, you can take on, like, in one league, I traded for Calvin Ridley. I traded for Chris Godwin after he got hurt. I traded for Juju Smith-Schuster. I traded for Curtis Samuel. I just added Deshaun Watson. You know what I mean? Like, give me all the risk. Give me every risky player, because again, I'm at the bottom. I can't go anywhere but up, So there's some fun in that. I also think that if you're literally just like in the middle, you have to decide, do I want to go up or down from here? You can't stay in the middle. Nobody wants to finish 6th or 8th or whatever in their league. So I think you have to really take an honest look at your league and say, is my team unlucky and potentially worth going up? Or is my team not functional and not good and got kind of lucky to get 6th? You know what I mean? Like, and I think Russ even talked about this on Trade Addicts one week, where he's like, my team is not great, but it's 3rd in scoring. That happens all the time. Injuries happen all the time. Guys like Derrick Henry get injured. I know there was one league where I had going into this season, I had Todd Gurley, Saquon Barkley, and Christian McCaffrey, and I'm like, I am set. You know what I mean? Like, I'm nope, not at all set. Like, I did not work out, and it's a start 3 running back league where I was like, I got nothing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm now scrambling together with like Mike Davis and Chuba Hubbard, and like, it's a grind, right? So you have to take an honest look at your league, and I think that actually makes a difference. The other thing too is send trade offers all the time. I think you mentioned this just a second ago there, Scott, where it's like, am I sending offers to contenders? Sure. But I'm also sending offers to the guys that just lost last week, like the 3rd and 4th place teams. That's who I'm targeting now. The contenders, the teams that are still in it, they have their team. They're not looking to make any moves. They're not going to, because they already figure they're going to have to sell at a premium. But that 3rd and 4th place game, like, that's who I look at on the bracket on MFL or Sleeper or wherever. And I'm like, those are the guys that I think, because they're the ones that are like a piece away, or that they think are a piece away. And if you've got a guy like a Stephon Diggs or an Aaron Jones or I don't know, name anybody at this point, you might be able to get a little more value from them, because they're like, you know what, I want to consolidate. I'll trade you these 2 ascending players. Like, give me, I don't know, Michael Carter and Michael Pittman for Aaron Jones. You know what I mean? Like, in a normal vacuum, that might not make any sense. But on your rebuilding team, give me the younger players with the higher upside. I don't need Aaron Jones. He's with A.J. Dillon. That could be messy. But that other team could be like, I'm consolidating my assets. I'm looking to better for the future. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do myself, is I'm aiming for those teams that just lost. Also, we all know this. When you just lose and you're just knocked out, you are the most on tilt you are all season. I know for a fact. I know, Chev, I'm sure you are, and I know Scott, I know you are, where it's like, you're pulling your hair out. You're like, how did I lose that game? Are you kidding me? I lost by 6 points. I lost by 3 points. Like, if I just had, there's this trade offer in my inbox. That would have fixed it. I'm smashing accept. And then 2 days later, you're like, what did I do? What did I do? That doesn't make sense. But like, you're in the moment and you're heated. You know, that's when you strike. So there's a lot of context to all this. But I mean, again, kind of get back to the original point. I don't mind sending offers to the people still in it, but I like to target anyone who just got knocked out, whether that's week 6, week 10, week 14, week 15. Like, those are the guys I'm targeting, because they're the ones feeling it.
For sure.
So in the Junkies listener league, I took over an orphan, which was kind of a weird time to do it. But Rocky was like, "Hey, this guy reached out. He said he's leaving, so we might as well move on now." And I've been waiting to grab my own team here. So I did, kind of blindly. I didn't even really look at what it was. I was just like, "Yeah, sure, just give it to me. Let's go." Yeah, and I mean, it's not a great team, but there's some pieces. But I felt like it was a move that I needed to make because of the things that I've said here. If I don't back them up with actual moves, then why are you listening to me, right? So what I did is I have kind of an aging roster here, and I looked for a piece that I didn't believe in for the future, which happened to be Rob Gronkowski. I traded Gronk and a 22 second and a 23 fourth for a 22 first and a 23 third. So essentially I'm moving up maybe 4 or 5 spots in the draft next year. But what it does is it gives me that first round pick. Now I've got 2 firsts, and it's a small move up. And you'd say, well, yeah, it's a no brainer for the guy still in it, this was last week at this point, before the games last week. So for him, it was a good move to make because he's getting a guy who could put up a ton of points, right? And for me, it's like, well, why would you do it? And I have plenty of examples of where that small move up changed things for me in a championship I'm playing in right now, where I moved Matt Ryan and the 203 for Aaron Jones and the 112. And so at 203, instead of getting like Rondale Moore, who I would have taken, I took Jalen Waddle at the 112.
Oops.
And that's there
difference.
you go. And now all of a sudden I plug in Aaron Jones and Jalen Waddle into my lineup. Matt Ryan wasn't playing for me anyway. Now I plugged in 2 starters, and I just went from having the 3rd pick to being in the championship. And so sometimes those moves, they seem small, but if you do them right and added in a little luck, that helps. Plus, I know that those picks are only going up in value, and I don't even have to use the picks, right? So once we get around to draft time, if there's another player that I like, I can easily package a couple firsts, or I can do that. But packaging a first and a second isn't nearly as sexy as packaging 2 firsts, right? So even if one is late. And so that's just the move that I wanted to make there, just to kind of be on brand and make that move.
Your league. Know your league.
And,
this is a no trade league. This is a Dynasty Junkies league. This is people like us that do this.
No trade deadline. Yeah,
crazy. So it's like, part of me says that trade pure value wise might not make sense, but in this league it makes perfect sense. I thought that was a great trade for you. I actually was kind of jealous. I'm like, even if it's only 4 spots, because what happens here is, let's say that's the 110, 111,
probably be the one. Like it'd probably be the 111 or 112, honestly.
Either way, let's say it's the 111 and you traded away the 204 or 205, like your pick was. Right? Let's say it's 5 picks. I'm trying to give you the biggest window here, right?
Yeah, 5 spots. Yeah,
6 picks. You can still trade back from the 109 to the 110 to the 111 to the 112. Like you still got options there, and I think that's where this comes down to. Is like this is a trade in December for rookie picks that aren't being made for 4 months. Right. And so it's like you can literally take, and again, everybody loves that one beside their pick. They're like, oh, it's a first. Ooh. It doesn't matter. Right? It's a 111, 112. Who cares? It's a first. And I think that was a terrific trade. So yeah, that little change makes a difference. I do want to caveat that with saying Rob Gronkowski on your team makes no sense. You're rebuilding. There's no reason to have Rob Gronkowski on your team. So get rid of him. And you sent a 4th in 23. Who cares? Like, you're not going to use that 4th for the most. You can get it back. Who cares? So, like, the only asset you gave up really was a 2nd to get a 1st. I'm in on that every day of the week. Go play.
Yeah. It makes sense. And now I think, I believe he made the final. So it will be 111 and 112. And I assumed it's the 112. When I make that trade,
always
I assume it's the 112. And if I can live with it, then I make the deal. So it looks like it's Unleash the Dragon versus Gators Bitches in the final.
Got some names, man.
At Real Goat 13 is Unleash the Dragon, and Gators Bitches. I don't even know who that. I haven't been in the league long enough to even know who that is at this point. So, and I will shout out to our buddy Jake Earl, because I think he's my most common league mate at this point. We're in like 12 leagues together, so that's funny.
Yeah, and I actually am a co-owner with Rocky on the other league, and I was saying to Rocky, like, we're in a rebuild on the Dynasty Junkies team in that league, and I told him, like, I'm in too many leagues, like I'll co-own it, but I'm not doing anything. So this year, I'm taking it on. Like, it's you versus me, Scott. Like, me and Rocky on this team versus you. Look out, listeners. This is gonna be a fun year. Like, this will
be a good time, no doubt.
Yeah. We're gonna make it a little bit. It was a little bit stagnant this year with us being in rebuild mode with the Junkies team. But now that we got Scott in it, also, I feel like it gives a little bit more, variability to this. So it gives us some flexibility. And we're gonna talk more about it on the show too, I'm sure. So
definitely, look out. We will for sure. We will for sure. Let's get into Find Me a Trade tonight. We normally love to get the listeners involved. We love when you guys submit our leagues. We had so many sleeper submissions, and we had more ones where we didn't know if there was a trade deadline type of thing. We just didn't want to get into all that right now. So basically, we're doing one of Rocky's teams from a kind of a weird league. And this particular one, I believe he went from I don't know if he did, but he's in the championship game. That's all you need to know. He's in the ship. He's going for it this weekend. He's looking to make a move here to get the win. It is a 12-team PPR super flex 1.75 tight end premium. There's a 3-point bonus for 100 yards rushing or receiving and 300 yards passing. I'm also in several leagues like that. I have one where it's a 10-point bonus, which I don't like that league, but it is kind of fun. And then also 0.1 point per return yard and some small bonuses for big plays. So there's a little bit more scoring, a little more variance in this league. Ultimately, he's in the championship. So
if you want, I'll run through the team. If you want,
okay.
I'll do that.
Yes.
I got it ready to go.
You got it pulled up. Perfect.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Here
30-man rosters, start 10. There are no positional requirements. It is all flexes. So essentially it's a super flex, and you have 2 super flex spots. You could start up to 2 quarterbacks, right? And then you have 8 additional flexes. You can start any position there. All flex league.
I'll be honest, this is one of the most Rocky Petrella teams I've ever seen. And I think quarterback says it all. You got Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, and Matt Stafford, like all 3 old aging quarterbacks. And then you got Joe Flacco and Chad Henne on the bench. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're just all old QBs. I love it, Rocky. Way to stay on brand, particularly Petrella. Running back, it gets a little weird to me. And this is kind of where we'll talk about this. But again, not having to start a running back changes the calculus a little bit, right? It's a PPR league. You don't have to start any. His running backs, I think I would call them a little weak. You got Darrell Williams, Mike Davis, Amir Abdullah, Matt Breida, like nobody that makes any sense. Like Jordan Howard, like you're not starting most of these players on a week-to-week basis. Darrell Williams actually has some value here and there. But if you're in the title game, that might be a hint to where we're going, is like maybe that's the place I would shore up, just because running backs do come in handy, especially like we said, as the end of the year goes on, running backs are kind of valuable. Receivers, I would say he's pretty stacked at the top. But again, you have to start. I think it was 8. You said, right, Scott? Like there's 8 players. Correct. Other than 2 quarterbacks. So you got Devontae Adams, Deontay Johnson, a classic Rocky pick, Justin Jefferson, and then it falls off a cliff. You got Julio Jones, Jamison Crowder, Deontay Harris, Zach Pascal, Deshaun Jackson. It gets gnarly. But then we get to the tight end room. And again, I think this is, particularly Petrella. You've got Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski, Zach Ertz, Tyler Conklin, Gerald Everett. All of those guys are startable, really.
Start all of them.
So you can really throw this in with no running backs and do 4 tight ends, 4 receivers, and 2 quarterbacks and be good to go. Like, this is not a bad team. I get why he's contending. It makes sense. On injured reserve, he just lost James Robinson. That was his number 1 running back. Let's be honest. That was a blow. Yeah. That hurts. That's a big loss. Giovanni Bernard, J.D. McKissick, Richie James, and Max Williams. And then taxi squad, nobody of real note, but Ian Book, who's kind of scoring points, I guess, if you count positive or negative. Jared Patterson and Kenny Yeboah. So again, this team, I think, is like 1 or 2 pieces away from what I would call dominant in this format. I don't think it's like a monster yet, but it's real close.
Yeah.
Real close.
It's getting old quick, though.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a concern for another day, because it's just about winning the ship this week, and who cares?
That's right.
At this point. But yeah, I mean, I'd be looking to kind of buy back some years on these. Yeah. So really, to me, he has 9 starters locked in. So two of the 3 quarterbacks, pick your 2. And then I would say four of those tight ends, and then another 3 receivers. So to me, he has 9 locked in guys that are, you just set them and hope, nothing pops up here last minute, but those are your 9 guys. And so I think you really need to just add 1 more. And I felt like there's probably a high enough floor as far as a high enough ceiling with the quarterbacks and tight ends, and especially the variance of wide receivers, especially big names like Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson. I kind of like a floor piece to fill in there, a running back, and like just to be able to get you like 10, 12 points, because sometimes these all flex leagues tend to be a massive blowout. Like, just somebody's going to win by 100 points, and it doesn't matter, because they're just hitting all the bonuses and a couple guys go off and it's nuts. Or it's really, really close. And so I like to kind of have that piece that's like, I can lock him in as my 10th starter for 10 to 12 points. And it was hard, because there's no real strategy to lean back on here to say like, hey, start 9 with, 2 running backs, 3 receivers, whatever. You can have those strategies in mind, and like, this is exactly what I would do and who I would target. This is more of like almost like, who's available? Who can I get? Just plug in this week. you know? And so I kind of struggled a little bit just because I think maybe the best strategy would be to target one of those players that was just eliminated. One of those teams just eliminated. I think that's, Andrew, what you were talking about, probably the best way to do it here, where you can get one of those maybe old pieces for cheap. I was kind of thinking more, make this team as old as possible so Rocky can just blow it all up.
All right.
So I felt like just I don't know why. I think the reason is I found Melvin Gordon on a team that's rebuilding and thought that guy should not be on that roster. And I go, that would be a nice piece to plug in this week, and you've got your 10, 12 points, and maybe he gets in the end zone. But then I realized that he doesn't really have any picks, which I should have known because it's Rocky. So I think he has like a third and a fourth, and I don't think that gets it done. And it doesn't look, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't look like there are 23 picks available yet. Is that what you see by looking at the future picks? It only shows 22. So I'm assuming that he can't access the 23 picks yet in order to throw out like a 23 second, because that would be my preferred.
So there are 23
offer.
picks. You can see the 23 picks in there. I don't know.
I see. I don't see them.
If you go to you can click on future picks and then go to year 2023 and you can see them in there. So like there definitely are 23 picks, and I see Trolls 2 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 23 firsts. I see Jigsaw with 1, right? So he's got 1. But there are a lot of picks that are being traded in 23. So I do, just to kind of put a point to that.
Oh, yep. Okay.
There's a lot of future pick trading happening 2 years out. Yep.
Okay. No, you know what? I believe that I did look at this as well, but he didn't have a second in 22 or 23.
Correct.
Yes, he has a third. He has a third in each, I believe.
Correct. Yep.
Right? And maybe a 23 first, which is too much to give up for.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So ultimately, I mean, my trade sucks, but we can move on to Andrew's.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with your trade. I just think that, I have a different one, but I think that you're on the same kind of thing that I'm looking for. It's like, I want a running back. I think that's the target I was going for. I think if I'm sending anybody at this point of the season, it's a tough ask to send anybody, because you're going to have to send somebody you're starting. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I was trying to avoid.
Yeah. And so like, you're going to have to send a starter to get a starter back. So I had kind of 2 options. And again, I don't know if either of these actually get done, but in a league like this, with all the tight ends that he's got, I think Kelsey is the one that I would probably send and try to see if I could send Kelsey and get somebody back equal or better. So my thought was to send Kelsey to the team Chucky, who just lost, like we were just saying, for either Diggs in a second or Kamara. And again, I'm using the second as like a placeholder, kind of like you were saying, like it doesn't have to be a second, but something in that same kind of range. But Diggs in a second, I think, adds another starter. So you're not really getting rid of much. And I think Diggs' upside is probably better than Kelsey's coming off of COVID here. So I'm thinking even short term, I don't mind Diggs. Diggs is a couple years younger, so Dynasty, that's nice. And then getting the pick, of course, is always a bonus. I think Diggs in a league like this, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. It's all flex, so it's kind of hard to say what the real valuation is. Those leagues are always tough for me. But I always feel like, tight ends don't matter as much in an all flex league. Maybe I'm wrong on that logic. I don't play in any like this myself, but when you can start, 7 tight ends or 2 tight ends or no tight ends, it kind of removes some of the value, I think. So my thought was Diggs is probably better than Kelsey now. And I would rather have Diggs more than Kelsey long term. But the other manager might look at that. Chucky might look at that and go, I don't have a tight end I'm starting. Maybe I kind of want that to balance it out. So that was the thought. The other trade that I came up with was Kelsey for Kamara straight up. And just to see, because again, I'm asking this question in a league of my own where it's like, the Hawkinson manager wants Kamara straight up. And I just don't think that's right. I feel like Kamara is worth more than Hawkinson. And in some of my thinking and discussing on Twitter with other people, it's like, I don't know if I would take Kelsey over Kamara. You know what I mean? I think I might like Kamara straight up because, again, in an all flex league, the valuations are very different. You don't have to start at tight end, yada, yada, like I just said. But Kamara is still a top 12 running back. He's not that old. He's 26, which is older than most, but he breaks the mold anyway. I mean, I might rather have a Kamara than a Kelsey in a league like this. And again, looking at just this week, with Kelsey coming off of IR and off of COVID and all that, like I think Kamara could outscore Kelsey this week and could be a better asset to trade in the future. So that was kind of the two thoughts that I had. And then I said to either of those, you can add J-Rob to either. Like if Robinson seals the deal, I mean, I don't know how much future you're going to have with him. I doubt that you're going to start him, or at least feel confident starting him. So if it's, Robinson and Kelsey for Kamara, I don't mind that either. I don't mind adding a little to that side if that's the counter. So I don't know. That was kind of my thoughts. I guess, Chev, what are your thoughts? Am I on the right pace? Do you think I'm on the right, line of thinking here?
Yeah, I think you're definitely on the right track. I mean, Kelsey, who knows how many years he has left? I know he's paired with Patrick Mahomes, so that's absolutely huge. But I think getting a young asset that will be possibly more valuable in trade, I definitely think is a valuable key to keeping your team. I mean, the team's already a little bit older already, so getting a little bit younger is not the worst thing that can happen. I'm going to be honest, I am not the biggest MFL fan, so I don't even know where you find draft picks or anything like that. I didn't get that far. I didn't get that far, but yeah, I mean, I honestly feel like the team is good enough for this week to compete for the championship. So I you could do a little bit of trades. Maybe you can find a team that has a bunch of wide receivers that's maybe looking to off of one of them and just find somebody else at a different position. But I think this team's already pretty close to being ready to win that championship. The tight ends are unbelievable. So I think it's like 1.75 points for reception. So, I mean, that's huge already with all those guys, man. They can take over a game and take over your championship. One or two players, it's big time for you.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where I'm at too. Like he's already got a couple tight ends. You know what I mean? Like this league has some, this team has some tight ends. So I think that's the only. I don't like sending one of your three receivers and a start 8 other thing. But like with tight ends, there are definitely other teams, and I'm sure if I'm setting a lineup and I don't have a tight end and something like this, even if I don't have to start one, I'd want one if I'm going to contend.
Yeah, and I mean in this scoring, Kelsey's averaging 5 more points per game than Diggs. So that's pretty significant. The other interesting thing about this is that in the top 25 average per game, there's 12 quarterbacks. So it shows that it's a nice balance here with, it's half quarterbacks and half, you have running backs, receivers, tight ends in there too. So there's really so many ways to build a roster in these flex leagues. And so it's tough to come up with something. It's more of just like, let me line up my points per game and figure out, what's the most points per game I can get this week for the cheapest amount, essentially.
This is the kind
really
of league
the way to look at it.
This is the kind of league I'm looking to join. Like I was saying before, like I'm getting rid of some leagues and joining new leagues with different formats.
I agree.
have not played in an all flex league yet. I've played in some where you start 3 running backs, 3 receivers, 2 tight ends, like it's very specific. I kind of want to go the other direction just because I didn't have fun with that league. It's so restrictive. There are a lot of points and all that, but like I kind of like the makeup of this. One of the other leagues I joined is like you start one of everything and then the rest of it is flex. It's the same kind of
I'm in
thing.
a couple like that.
Which I really like the ability to roster construct how you want, and you can kind of pivot a bunch of different ways. You don't have to worry about starting 3 running backs. Again, I'm not trying to, shame anybody or say that there's right or wrong. It's just I want to try something different. I want to try something new. I want to, get into this, see if I like it. I think, and this is maybe getting a little bit too meta, but especially with this team in this league, I love the way that this is built, right? And I hate complimenting Rocky. It just doesn't make me feel good. But and he's not here, so we have to crap on him. But for the most part, I feel like this team is better than what I would probably have in the same situation. Let's put it that way. Where I'm respectful of this and be like, hey, this team is in the championship. I get it. It's a good team. He's right there. So I don't think there's a whole bunch of big needs that need to be made. Have we talked about the trades that he's got available yet, Scott? Have you brought those up at all? I don't.
I have not, Andrew. If you want to pull those up, and while you're doing so, I do just want to say if all the listeners take away from this whole conversation is Andrew and I need to join an all flex league, and so let's make that happen, guys.
Hook it up.
Invite us.
These are the 2 trades that Rocky apparently currently has available for him to accept. Somebody is willing to send Dallas Goedert for Rocky's 23 first.
Yuck.
Let's just talk about that for a second. Goddard for a first in an all flex league like this. I say no. I would rather hold the first. Where are you at, Chev?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love Goddard. I've got Nate to take 5 shots last year on a bet that we made where Goddard would outscore Ertz. So I love it. I love Goddard a lot, but the 23 class, I think, has a lot of young talent that's going to come in and really shock a lot of people and take a lot of the running back landscape. And he needs running backs. He does not need tight ends at this point. So
Bingo.
It's a hard pass for me. Not really, but I love Goddard. But, man, I got to keep that 23 first. Some guys got 5 of those first. Oh, my God.
Yeah, I like the idea of Goddard as a young asset, and obviously that's points over a pick that doesn't score points. So, like, I get the logic in that. Like, you might want to say, let's do that this week and make the extra points. I'm just not sure Goddard outscores whoever, like Crowder or even like honestly, like Darrell Williams or something. Like Edwards-Helaire may not play this week. Darrell Williams isn't a bad 9th or 10th starter. Like it kind of, I mean, again, like Gerald Everett isn't a bad 9th or 10th starter this week. Like if you're just looking DFS wise, like I don't know if Goddard's that much of an upgrade to sacrifice your youth with your aging quarterbacks and no running backs. I'd really like to, I don't know, hold on to some of that youth. So I'm right there with you. Scott, are you kind of on the same page as the two of us?
Yeah, without having the starting requirement for a tight end.
Right.
And
already having 3 of them. That's what I keep going back to. Like you don't need extra tight ends, although I get the logic. The other trade, which I thought was a little bit more intriguing, was Boston Scott for an early third. So like getting Boston Scott for a 3rd round pick that I may not ever use. Miles Sanders is out. I believe we didn't talk about this in injury, but Miles Sanders broke his hand. He's most likely out for the year. And again, only this week matters anyway, but like Boston Scott could be in line for some points this week. It's not a best ball, so you'd have to click the box beside Boston Scott, and that makes me nervous because I don't know if I can do it. But for a third, you're not risking much at all. I might do that one. I don't know. I feel like Boston Scott's better than a third. Chev, let's kick it back to you.
Yeah, and those 3rd round picks, I mean, you're just looking for lottery guys anyway. But if you can win a championship, winning a championship is the biggest thing you can do. It pays for your league fees for how many other years, and you get to have that on all your other league mates. So, yeah, I think I would actually take Boston Scott, especially with Miles Sanders' injuries and whatnot. I don't know how long Boston Scott will be on your lineup, but it seems like he fits exactly into that lineup with all the oldness that you got there. So, yeah, I think I would go with Boston Scott rather than a third. That could be just a lottery ticket anyway.
I mean, Boston Scott is ECR RB 31. Like he's not like a stud, but I feel like that I don't mind that in this week, like going for the upside. You know what I mean? Like for a third, you're not scoring anything with a third. Maybe it's a chance, I guess. Again, Scott, talk some reason into us. Are we on the same page?
It's probably one that I'd decline the Goddard one, and I'd just let this sit to see if I can pull off anything else. And if I can't, it's better than my current options on my roster. So for that reason, I would do it just for the ship. But I mean, who knows, man? We've seen Jordan Howard have good games with Sanders out. We've seen it be Kenneth Gainwell. Who knows? It's a total shot in the dark. But if you can't pull off anything else, and he's going to be your 10th starter, and or maybe you lose somebody here that unexpectedly, Friday, Saturday test here coming up, you never know, right? So in that case, I think it's definitely in play. And, I don't think the guy offering it would be upset sitting on it because he's getting a free third, which I'd much rather have than Boston Scott. So yeah, I'm leaving that one.
In a similar vein, what I might do is try to pivot, like sending a 4th for Dare. Sending a 4th for Deonta Foreman. Like, and again, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but like sending a late pick for one of those guys that has very little, if any, future value, but has a lot of week 17 value, right? Like Dare Ogunbowale is one of those guys that you could have gotten off waivers. He didn't, obviously, but whoever did, if they spent fab on him, they might take the pick because they're not in the championship game. Again, I'm not looking at it. I doubt his opponent got him, but that's kind of where I'm like, even in an all flex league like this, I might start Ogunbowale over, Crowder. You know what I mean? Like some of those other guys, like over Everett, like I was just talking about, like I might start Ogunbowale there. He's not a bad option in this week. So that's where like I might try to spend, if I have to do a third, fine. But like that's kind of where I'm at. And I don't know, Chev, did we get into your trade? I guess maybe I missed it, but I don't think we really did yet, right?
No, yeah, I was just saying maybe look for a wide receiver out there. I mean, you have a lot already, but I mean, PPR, find a guy that could get you a few catches. I mean, we talked about it earlier with McKenzie, like he's probably not going to get too many catches. And then who's the other guy we were talking about? Wale, right?
Yeah.
Scott said he could get 6 catches. Like right there, you beat McKenzie right there. So I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't see Dare on anybody's roster. I may have missed him, but he could be free out there, and I would definitely take the free Dare over anybody else. Like trade a 4th, like
for sure.
Maybe you guys can look at it a little better.
You mentioned Christian Kirk as well, and that's a name that I like to grab right now too, because he could have, especially in this bonus type league, he could easily have one of those big plays. He could have, 2 for 60 and a touchdown, and he could have some value for next year. So it's kind of the double whammy, right? Like he could put you over the edge here, and he could have some value next year where he's going to be a free agent. He might go somewhere where he has a more consistent role. So, that's somebody I'd love to grab right now, for sure, is Christian Kirk. That's a good name.
Yeah, for sure. I think Kirk is actually somebody that I'm trying to target a lot of places. And I think even to kind of go into maybe pivoting into future, rebuilding talk. I mean, Josh Palmer is one of those guys too, right? Yes. Like somebody who I think you can send very little and get a lot of return for. Like some of those, Mike Williams might be gone. And Palmer could be the guy. I mean, like some of that stuff right now, 3rd and 4th round picks, that's who you trade them for. I personally don't like drafting 3rd round and 4th round picks because they're almost all lottery tickets. And as soon as you make the pick, the value drops tremendously. You know what I mean? Like it's all, to each their own, but it's like, that's not what I like to do. I'd rather trade that 3rd round pick and let somebody else make it and trade it for a guy who I feel like, has more value. Not Amon-Ra St. Brown anymore. He's gone higher than that. But, week 3 or 4, you could have gotten you could have sent a 3rd for Amon-Ra St. Brown, one of those guys. So I think we're on the same page. I don't think this team needs a big overhaul. My trade was probably the biggest of the group, but I think it's all in the same vein of like, well, just trying to pivot a little bit. There's slight pivots to try to tweak your upside a little bit and not hurt you in the long run. And that's kind of where I think a team like this that's contending, that's in the title game, that's all you're looking to do. You don't need to overhaul anything if you're in the title game. Like, you've done a good job getting there. Let's just bring it home. And that's what we're all trying to do is little tweaks, little tiny things.
KJ Osborne is a guy too that I don't know what the owner thinks of him, but that is a guy that this week I was going to talk about with Adam Thielen being injured. That is a guy that could win this league for him if he can somehow pry him away from
he might win Scott Fishbowl for me. So, I'm all about KJ Osborne this week.
Yeah, that's a huge play this week. I think he's definitely going to be seeing a lot of targets. And, I mean, with Thielen out, that definitely helps him. And you got Jefferson on the other side taking coverage away. You got Dalvin Cook running hard. Like, he's taking all the people in the middle, man. Ooh.
Osborne has 15-plus points in every game. He's seen 6-plus targets this year, except for 1 early in the season. So, put the guy in your lineup. Or trade for him, whatever you need to do here. A couple names I want to throw on here in the end, and then I want to throw it to you, Chev, and see if there's any names coming up for next year, any rookies you're excited about. I know you guys talk about that stuff a lot on Rewind, and I just want to give you a chance to talk about that a little bit. But a couple guys I've been seeing going for real cheap here that you can get for nothing. Allen Robinson. He's going to be a free agent. He should go anywhere is literally a better situation, like literally any team. There's going to be a little bit of a discount on Chris Godwin right now. He's somebody that I would be looking to obtain. It's late in the year. Maybe it affects you a little bit beginning of next year, but still. Mike Williams is going to be a free agent. We mentioned earlier Juju Smith-Schuster. Some of these guys that I think are not going to be super expensive, and if you can get them for like a second or a couple of seconds, Christian Kirk we talked about earlier, those are the type of guys that we've seen them do it in the NFL, and if you can get them for a second or even a second, a third, or 2 seconds, or I'm okay spending that because this next draft class, in my opinion, at this point, and the research I've done, is going to be a lot of guys, but it's going to be lottery tickets, right? And there's going to be guys probably that hit from the 2nd and 3rd round, but we have no idea who or where they're going to be at this point. So if you can get a guy who's proven and can help you, put points in your lineup next season, I am all about that. Some of those guys I would be targeting right now. Chev, do you have any names for us? from the rookie class, anybody that you guys have been talking about, anybody that you've researched? I know we're still in season here, but just to kind of be thinking about, or maybe even thinking about some of those rookie picks, right? Like what do we and your overall thoughts on the 22 class, because I know everybody's 22 sucks, get 23 picks, all that type of stuff. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yes, I mean, I think the 22 class is going to surprise the people. I mean, honestly, the running back class, I think, is going to be a little more dependent on where they land. Obviously, I think the talent is pretty similar to each other, so I think that landing spot is definitely going to push Spiller above Hall, or whatever you want to call your rankings. I think those landing spots are definitely going to play a big key. I really like the wide receiver class, honestly. I think there's a lot of good dudes. You got Burks, you got Olave, you got Wilson. I mean, there's so many good wide receivers, and I think a lot of people are starting to figure out, man, if I can get these wide receivers, they're hitting a lot more often than these running backs. Look at Trey Sermon, hasn't done anything. You can grab a fourth round wide receiver in your rookie draft and they could still come up to something. We see it every time. So I think the wide receiver class is definitely going to be a little bit stronger. I'm not too excited about the quarterback class. I think there's just a lot of lottery pick guys. If they hit, great. If they don't, you're going to see them become backups for a long time, I think. So that one really worries me. One person I really do like is George Pickens. I think he's going to be a guy that flies way under the radar. And I think he is somebody that is going to make a dynasty manager very happy in the next few seasons, especially if he lands in a good spot. If he can go to Chicago, I would be really excited about that. But I'm not holding my breath. We'll see what happens in the offseason with these guys. I don't even know. Allen Robinson has really soured me too. I just feel like he doesn't play too hard. But yeah, I think this 22 class is going to be good. I'm not expecting a whole lot of guarantees after like pick 7 or 8 like that. I think we're really going to be really kind of lottery pick kind of guys as well. So I got a lot of time left to watch film, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. But there's a lot of good wide receivers, and if you need a wide receiver, man, this is the year that you can go out and snag them. 2023, go get your running backs. That's for sure.
I think we're definitely on the same page there, and I feel like, again, their landing spot's going to be a big deal, obviously. But yeah, I just feel like there's a large group of wide receivers and even running backs. Like there's just a lot of guys, and maybe they're not 3-down backs, or maybe they're not X receivers, but they can have a role. They can come in, they can produce. And so I'm honestly grabbing 2nd and 3rd round picks at this point, because there may be kind of a, from end of the 1st through middle of the 2nd may not be a huge difference. And from end of the 2nd through end of the 3rd may not be a huge difference. And so, keep that in mind right now when you're thinking about this next rookie class. And trust me, the hype's going to build and guys are going to hit. And once we get done with all these championships and stuff, we're going to start talking about the combine and the draft and all that. And then those rookie picks are going to go up in value. So
explode, man. You got to hang on to those picks till the draft time is almost near for your league, because they are going to gain so much value. I mean, we see it. A wide receiver goes to your favorite team, or somebody's favorite team in your league, and man, they want him so bad, they'll trade the world for him. So yeah, hang on to those bad boys, trade them right before the draft, and I think you'll be good to go.
Every year, it never fails. Andrew, any final thoughts tonight on anything?
Yeah, so I know we've gone long already, but I just want to say this to kind of say what Chev was saying too, is that I think every year we've got like 8 players that are going to be good, and then the draft shows up and we get like 2 more. They just show up because of draft spot. And I think every year in September, I feel like I hear it. Oh, this draft class isn't great. Trade out. And then come January, it's like, oh, this class isn't as bad as we thought.
Right.
It's how it is. There's always going to be rookies that step up and do a good job. Like, not everyone's going to be Najee Harris, but you're going to get plenty of players like Michael Carter. You're going to get plenty of players like Jalen Waddle, even, to be honest, like Rashad Bateman, like these guys that are still going to have a lot of future value. And I hate to say it, but you're going to have plenty of guys like Paris Campbell and Jalen Reagor and, Andy Isabella, and like these names that you think are going to be amazing that aren't. And it's like, it's really impossible for us. We all try to predict the future, and none of us are right 100% of the time. So yeah, I always tell people to don't just listen to me. Don't just listen to us. Do your own research. Try to find your own way to watch film, or your own way to watch clips, or, find your own metrics, find the guys that you like and draft them. Because honestly, like there's nothing worse than picking the guy that someone else said to draft and you don't like him. Like,
exactly.
No. Find the guys that you like, pick them, ride or die. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about fun. You don't have to be right. Just have fun with it. And I think a lot of times too, and coming off the season, you've got some people that are tilting, like we mentioned earlier. Just do your best. Have fun with this. That's the whole point. And I think we're all on the same page there. I know Rewind, all you guys on the Rewind crew that we've all had on here are on the same page. Like, just keep going, keep grinding, and have fun. That's the end game of this. So, yeah, that's where I want to leave it.
Yeah, man, just have fun. I mean, you definitely have to do your own analysis, but when I first started, I didn't watch some of the players. I was like, I took somebody's word. And then I ended up just absolutely hating that player on my team. I'm like, why did they even draft him? I don't even like him. So, I mean, even if it's just watching highlights, go watch highlights. I don't recommend but like watch something. If you're going to watch film, go watch some film. There's film all over YouTube. You can
Twitter,
go to Dynasty Nerds.
Yep.
I mean, it's everywhere for you to go watch. And if you don't know what you're looking for, ask somebody, man. If you don't ask questions, you're never going to find the answers. And we're not all film analysts. Like, we're not all the greatest at watching film. Like, we're just watching for different traits that these people have, different tricks and candies that these players can have. And sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it don't. But we're doing our own analysis and we're finding out the guys that we actually like. So this time for me, I love this time where maybe they're not scoring points, but man, we're finding assets to grow and build on our team. And
my favorite time of year.
Valuations are changing whether they're scoring points or not. That's the whole point.
That's right.
Blurbs are making moves. You know what I mean? Like people are getting sick of it. They've had Barkley all year and they're ready to get rid of him for cheap. This is the time of year to strike. If you believe Barkley's the guy or he's on his last year and he's going somewhere else after this, now's the time to get him. All that stuff. I love this time of year. Honestly, from January to March, I tend to take a little bit of a break from a lot of my leagues and just kind of let it settle because there's a lot of emotions for me in a lot of cases where it's like I'm out of it. I just got burned. Let's let it settle. But it gives me time to focus on the new stuff, the next generation, the next class. I love that. This is every year. That's why I love Dynasty. It's always fresh.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Great show tonight, boys. Chev Noone at Chev Boyardee.
Yeah.
The greatest Twitter handle. Chev, you want to tell the people where you're at, where they can find you?
Yeah, so you guys can find me on Twitter at Chev Boyardee. Feel free to hit me in the DMs, whether it's about life or whether it's about fantasy football, man. I'm here for everything. I love being able to help people out in any kind of way. So feel free to do so. Follow Dynasty Rewind. There's a lot of good people there. I mean, it's become a family, man. We started out kind of just having fun, doing our thing, and now it's kind of grown a little bit. We've got a lot more people on, and it's really become something really awesome. We're really lucky to get over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube recently. So that's been absolutely massive, something really huge that I would have never expected. Man, I expected to maybe get like 25 followers or whatnot, but man, this thing has turned into something even greater. It's brought me a lot of close friends, a lot of new people that I've interacted with. And I mean, Scott, I didn't know Scott for a long time, and then he's a Bears fan in one of our leagues, so we started talking about that, and then we just get to chat it up in Twitter. So this has been a dream. It's been so much fun, and follow Dynasty Rewind. We got a lot of good stuff coming out, and should be a lot of content coming out very soon too. So Thank you guys for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Appreciate you, man. Yeah, I love your insight, and I'm so proud of you guys and so happy for all your success. It's awesome. Couldn't happen to a better group of guys, and we've obviously had several of you on recently, and we're gonna have some more here in the future. Yeah. So we're keeping this Rewind Junkies connection going. We love it.
Sure.
Let's finish up here with some business. You can find us at Dynasty Junkies on Twitter. We are a member of the DAP network at DAP_network. You can find Rocky on Twitter somewhere at Dynasty FF Addict. I got it right that time.
Can't believe it.
And of course, my man at Andrew Hall FF, and myself, the creative name at Scott_Sidlow. Give us a subscribe over on YouTube. Give us a rate and review anywhere, wherever you listen. We appreciate it. Reach out to us anytime. Questions, last minute decisions here, no trade deadlines, whatever you guys got going, we're always here for you. We have great interaction with all the listeners, a lot of awesome messages too, and just want to say thank you to everyone again for all the love with the Scott Fish Bowl, and it's really cool. We have such a cool community, you know. It's awesome. Can't say it enough. Hit us up, and we will have a lot of good stuff coming up for you here in the non-point scoring season. Good luck in your championships. And Andrew, you want to take us out?
I just want to say, bring it home, Scott. Let's do it. Get that SFB title. And on that note, Junkies out.